More than 1,600 caucuses are underway in Iowa right now. We're expecting to get results very soon. Tom Foreman is joining us from Grinnell, Iowa, Grinnell College. I understand, Tom, there's been a development where you are?
There really has been, Wolf. The Pete Buttigieg group here, which was right on the edge of viability, just collapsed moments ago, like all the other ones over here. Yang, Steyer, Biden, Klobuchar, all of them were unviable, and they all split up. The Buttigieg people split between the Warren group, which is over here and is strong and cheered a lot of them in, and then some who went to the Sanders group. And just at this location, it's not the whole state, but here, this is what happened. Some went to the Sanders group here, but most importantly is this group down on the end, the uncommitted group. Many people, including some from Buttigieg, went down here, and this group may have just squeaked into viability. That matters, because if they have some viability, it allows them to have a say as the process goes forward a little bit for all of their candidates, instead of suddenly having a sweep by Sanders and Warren over here. It's still preliminary. We don't have a final count on it right now, and this group may or may not be over the threshold, but it was fascinating to watch the complete collapse of one side of this gym and all the supporters in here who have now been divided among these two big, powerful groups in just this caucus, and uncommitted over here, which is a bit of an end run by the people who really want to make sure they still have a say for their candidates, even if Warren and Sanders walk away with the bulk of support in this caucus. Wolf?
All right, I just want to remind our viewers, Tom, this is but one of out of more than 1,600 caucus sites throughout the state of Iowa right now. So we're watching it closely. This is a college town, Grinnell College. All right, let's go back to Jake.
So, Wolf, we're here at Des Moines 47, and after a somewhat shaky start where it took a little while to figure out whether or not they had enough preference cards, that's the card on which you write which candidate you like, and they did not. So then they had to wait for preference cards to be delivered, and then they had to do a count of how many total caucus attendees there are, and that kind of didn't work out the first time, so then they had to do another count. Finally, we're in the position of trying to figure out which groups here meet the viability threshold. So there are 368 caucus attendees. That means 15%, rounding up, is 56. So now all of the groups, Biden, Yang, Warren, Sanders, Buttigieg, Klobuchar, everyone else, are trying to find out whether or not they have 56 caucus goers in their group. They make the viability threshold, and that's the big decision right now. This is the Elizabeth Warren group. Are you how many people do you have? Do you know?
We had 102.
102. So you totally made the viability threshold. Okay, so Team Warren is happy. Biden, how are we doing over here? This does not look like 56 people. So the Biden group. So you look like lovely, wonderful people, but it doesn't look like you made the viability threshold.
Not yet.
Not. There's time. This year? I'm not trying to be funny, but no. But where? What are you going to do?
We're gonna stand strong with our first choice, and when other candidates are not viable, we know that Joe is a lot of people's second choice and will become viable in the second alignment. Absolutely.
So you think that people who, like for instance, the Yang people probably don't have 56.
They don't.
The Klobuchar people, I don't think they do. So you think there's still a possibility that they will come here?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So hope springs eternal. Here's the Yang gang. Yang, who do I talk to here? How many? Is there a precinct captain here? Is there? I'm just gonna. All right. I'm just gonna go with you. How many Yang gangers are here right now?
26.
26. So you're not going to make the viability threshold?
No.
I can't do that. All right. So anyway, so there are going to be some tough decisions for people here. Dana Bash is on the other end here at Des Moines 47. Dana?
That's right, Jake. So over here you see the Buttigieg camp, and over to my right is the Bernie Sanders camp. They we don't have the exact number for them yet, but they certainly look like they're viable, as you were saying. It's 56 here at this precinct. Emily, here you are, and you and your husband Nick, you are with the Buttigieg camp. How many have you counted so far?
We counted 71. Of course, that's unofficial, but we did a pretty good job, I think. So we're going to be viable, I think.
So you feel good about this first round. And Jake, if you can see, or if our viewers can see back there, can't move a lot with the camera right now, but if you check back behind me, that is the Amy Klobuchar camp. We don't have the number yet, but it doesn't look like they're necessarily going to get to 56. But again, they're still moving around a little bit. If they don't, you can be sure, am I right, Emily and Nick, that you are going to be making your way over to the Klobuchar camp to see if you can pull people over to your candidate?
Absolutely. We believe that a lot of the Amy supporters have the same message that we do and share a lot of the same pragmatic supporters. Okay. So we'll be going over there.
We'll see. We're going to get the official count on this first alignment or the first round here, Wolf, and we'll send it back to you, and we'll let you know how it goes once we get the official count here.
And we should be getting all those numbers fairly soon. Remember, that's just one caucus out of more than 1,600. All right, much more of our special coverage right after this. We're awaiting the results. The first results from the Iowa caucuses should be coming in very, very soon. Stand by for that. I want to check in with Miguel Marquez. He's at a caucus site in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Miguel?
Yeah, Cedar Rapids, the high point for this caucus site was 508 back in 2008. They got 437 voters in this group. We now have 5 viable groups at this point. The Warren group over here, they are now viable. That's one group that is looking for more voters for that second alignment. The Biden group, which is over here, they are also viable. Pete Buttigieg, his group right over here, they've just done a count, and they are viable. 66 individuals, 66 caucus goers they need to be viable in this room. Bernie Sanders, his supporters are over here. They are viable. And Amy Klobuchar, her supporters are here. She is also now viable for this group. They are doing a official count of all of these various groups, and then they will go to that second and final alignment period where they are trying to get people to go from other groups to here. Interestingly enough, a late ad, Kamala Harris had somebody show up. Yang had somebody show up. So there are other groups, much smaller groups, and the people who are uncommitted are back there, so we'll see how many there are there. But right now, 5 viable groups in this area that is somewhat more moderate, somewhat more conservative, somewhat more urban, and also the suburbs of Cedar Rapids. A pretty big group here, but certainly not as many as they were expecting. They had 900 preference cards on hand. They were expecting a very big turnout, so perhaps a little smaller than they were expecting. Wolf?
All right, thanks very much, Miguel Marquez. We'll get back to you. Let's go back to Jake. I take it they're starting to count where you are?
Yeah, they're counting right now, and what's going on is, as we talked about, the viability threshold. So each group is trying to reach the magic number of 56. There are 368 caucus attendees here. 15% of that is 56. We know that the Buttigieg people feel like they have about 70-something, maybe 71 people. That means they reach the viability threshold. The Sanders people are confident that they have more than 100 people here, so they've reached the viability threshold. The Warren people are confident that they have reached the viability threshold. They, too, feel like they have more than 100 people. But that means that there are all these other groups that did not meet the viability threshold. It looks like, on initial count right now, Klobuchar, Yang, Biden, uncommitted, and all others have not reached that level. So they have to figure out what they want to do now. Now, you heard some of the Biden people earlier saying that they hope that the Klobuchar people and the Yang people would come over to them and join their gang and reach viability for Joe Biden. Guess what? That's what the Yang people want the Biden people to do. This is just at this one site, we should point out. We're just talking about one precinct out of more than 1,600, almost 1,700. So what happens here is not necessarily indicative of what's going on across the state. This is a very urban, very young neighborhood, so it's not as though people thought Biden was going to do well. That said, the fact that he didn't even make the first cut on the first vote for viability threshold is saying something. Dana Bash is also here. Dana, what are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Jake, I'm over with the Biden team, and I have Mike here. You have the cards here?
I do have the first round alignment, yep.
And how many did you just count?
We have 22 right now, which means that we're not viable at this point. But as I was saying earlier, we're not worried about that because I know that there's a number of other candidates that are not viable, and we're a lot of those candidates, those delegates' second choice.
Right, but if you're not viable in the first round and you're locked in.
No, so the rules are if you are viable, you're locked in. But there's a number of campaigns that are not.
So got it. So you're hoping that other maybe, for example, if Amy Klobuchar is not viable or others.
Absolutely, exactly.
So you're not giving up.
Oh, we're not giving up. No, we're going to be viable. I know that's going to happen. This is just the first step in this process.
Okay. You're about halfway there.
I know. I'm confident.
Okay.
Come back and see me after the second line.
All right. Good deal. So we're going to come over here, make our way over to the Warren campaign. You see they're counting over here. We're in the crowd here, excuse me. Come over here with me, John. We're counting here. How many have you gotten so far?
Okay, I've gotten 67 so far.
So you have made the first cut.
So we have, yeah.
You're viable.
We were viable. So we have, our first count was 102. So I just have to count to 102 and then I should be.
Well, you needed 56, so you're there.
Right, exactly, yes.
And so after this first round, your hope is to look at some of the other campaigns, try to lure them over if they are not viable in the first round.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. So you see, this is, again, as you've said all night, Wolf, just a glimpse, just one of, almost 1,700 caucuses around the state. But this is the first round. Elizabeth Warren here is doing extremely well. Joe Biden, as you heard, they're not giving up. They're not viable right now.
Let's see what's happening at a lot of the other caucus sites as well. Dana, we'll get back to you. Tom Foreman is at Grinnell College in Grinnell, Iowa. I take it some of the final numbers are in?
Yeah, Wolf, we're getting down to the final numbers. They may wiggle a little bit here if we take a look at the big numbers here. For Elizabeth Warren, closest to the camera here. Bernie Sanders with the biggest numbers down there. You can see their numbers, 37%, something like that, a little bit further down for higher up for Sanders altogether. But way down here at the far end is the real success story in a way of the night. These are where all the people came together from all the other campaigns who were not viable. And look what happened. In the end, they needed 15% to be viable by combining all their forces, and they managed to just squeak over the edge and become just barely viable by getting together here. In the group that gathered down here, in the end, they had about 3 or 4 caucus goers that made the difference. I say 3 or 4 because this has all been very fluid, but it was enough for them to get through. Look over here again. That's the undecided. That gives them some say. Here is Sanders, which is the big group in here, but then up here, as we pan toward this side, this is all the Warren support up in here, which spilled out into the floor. So the big winners here tonight, undeniably. Bernie Sanders first, Elizabeth Warren second with the biggest crowd, and then the undecideds down there who managed to squeak out their own kind of victory with that razor-thin margin there, Wolf, that allows them to have some say as the delegates move forward. Wolf?
Once again, one caucus site out of almost 1,700 throughout the state of Iowa. Tom Foreman, thanks very much. Let's check back with Jeff Zeleny. Jeff, I take it at the caucus site where you are, they now have you have results from the first round?
We do indeed, Wolf, and we are standing in front of the Elizabeth Warren section here, and there's a reason for that. Let's take a look at the numbers on the left side of our screen. Elizabeth Warren coming with 31% in this precinct, followed by Pete Buttigieg, 25%. Then Bernie Sanders, 25% as well. Going on from there, Andrew Yang, 8.3%. Amy Klobuchar, 6%. Joe Biden, 4%. So that is the look at this first round. Now what happens, of course, is realignment. So we have Warren supporters now filling out their first choice preference cards. That's what happens after the first choice. So these Warren supporters obviously will stay. A question is, will all of them stay? Will some sort of leave? The Bernie Sanders supporters, you can see many of them are sitting down. This has gone a little bit longer than it normally does. There was a couple recounts here because they were a bit of a discrepancy. Now they're standing up since we're here. But look, these are the Bernie Sanders supporters here. 3 candidates only are viable in this precinct. So that is Sanders, Warren, and Buttigieg. Now that is a question. What are these supporters over here going to do? This small group here is the Joe Biden crowd. So we now have Biden, Klobuchar, Andrew Yang, not viable. So the persuasion begins. Back to you, Wolf.
All right, thanks very much. Let's check in with David Chalian. So explain to viewers who may just be tuning in, it's not like going into a voting booth, you vote for someone and you leave. This has been going on for an hour and a half right now.
That's right, and it is designed to be a longer process. It is a communal event in that way. Wolf, you know there are 2 rounds of voting. People show up to these caucus sites, they make their initial preference known, they go into a corner, you see all of this happening underway before our eyes. They go into a corner, they do that initial preference. All the numbers you're hearing all our reporters and anchors talking about, they do a calculation to determine who has 15% support, who is viable, and they determine which candidates are not viable. And so then there is a second round of voting. This is called realignment. It is that second round of voting that's critical, Wolf, because that is used to determine the share of state delegates that each candidate gets, and that's how you determine the winner of the Iowa caucuses. So they can make that initial preference, then they realign themselves. Those that aren't viable can join viable groups, and then they get a final count, and that informs us as to who won in each of those precinct caucuses, and that's how we start learning who won statewide.
Stay with me. I want to go to Cedar Rapids, Iowa right now. Miguel Marquez is there. I take it you got the results from the first round. Is that right, Miguel?
Yeah. We are getting through our first round here, and interestingly, 437 voters in this room here in Cedar Rapids, and it's the Buttigieg supporters that have the most support. 25.452, just over 25% for Buttigieg. 18.5% for Bernie Sanders. They are also viable. The Klobuchar group is just up here. They are also viable. They're at 17, almost 18%. And the Biden group, they are over here at 15%. And Warren, they're at 18.79%, so almost 19% for Warren. And they are also viable. We are getting ready now to do that second alignment with those that are not viable, and we will see where all of this goes right now. And they're actually saying that they have some spoiled ballots here, so we're going to sort that out now here as well, and we will try to figure that out. Wolf, back to you.
We certainly will. David Chalian, it looks like 5 of those candidates, if it stays like that, if those numbers stay like that, will be viable. You need 15% to be viable.
So when you spread the support out evenly, you can get that many candidates, 5 candidates above 15%, able to win delegates out of that one site. I mean, Wolf, we don't see that. If you look at the history of the Iowa caucuses, I don't think we've ever seen in the modern era even 4 candidates at the end of the night end up over that 15% threshold statewide to actually win a delegate. So to see 5 candidates splitting in that precinct in a way that they're all above 15%, that is a very competitive individual precinct. Again, it's one site of nearly 1,700 sites across the state. So that is an example of a really competitive one, unlike what we were seeing in Grinnell when Bernie Sanders was crushing with young people. And that's the thing. Each geographic makeup, ideological makeup across all of these 1,700 sites start to give that statewide aggregate sense of where the electorate is at. It's hard to glean how the night is going to go from just a single precinct, but that is a very competitive Iowa caucus precinct right there.
All right, David, stand by with John King over here at the Magic Well. It's been more than an hour and a half. We've been getting snapshots from various caucuses out there, but still no official numbers coming in from from the DNC, from the state.
And we're seeing from our reporters on the scene at these sites, part of the complexity, as David just noted, these are alphabetical because we don't have results yet. That's how they stack in the wall through the computer system until we get results. So you see Warren down here at these caucus sites. We see she's doing fairly well. We'll see Senator Sanders down here. So there's alphabetical for now and nothing in the wall an hour and a half in, as you mentioned. That's unusual, but so is such a crowded field. So is all that horse trading we're seeing going on now with a decent turnout. Most of the people saying decent high turnout at these places. So many candidates to choose from. The realignment process taking some time. We expect pretty soon we'll start to fill it in, and then we'll try to sort it out. But from all those caucus site visits, you see some relatively competitive. I've been texting people in the back trying to get some data from the scenes. A lot of the campaigns are just sort of as nervous as we are trying to figure out what's going on out there.
It's because usually, we've covered Iowa caucuses, usually after a half an hour, 45 minutes, you start getting some significant results.
You start getting some. Again, the crowded field has something to do with it. If you go back in time, it's a little easier to count. If you're on one of these sites, you don't have, double check and triple check. When you're only doing with 2 candidates, it's easier to double check and triple check and have your final results. When you have decent turnout, and especially when you have these 2 or 3 groups that are not viable, and then you have people, you saw that one where Tom Foreman was, where they grouped up to get over 15% for uncommitted. Then that uncommitted group bands together. When you have all that happening, it takes more time. You have people in the crowded rooms, it takes more time. If there's only 2 candidates to count, it's a little easier to do, even if you go back in time. Really, 3 candidates to count here. It's a bit easier to do. But remember, Wolf, just to give you a little bit of history, you remember when we were doing this?
Yeah, I do remember.
Yes, when it's this tight, too, sometimes it takes louder. This is the Republican side. The process is very different on the Republican side than the Democratic side, but we were doing arithmetic on the wall, if you remember, in this one. So caucuses are more complicated. You're not just dropping a ballot in. A computer's not counting it for you. And so let's come back to the Democratic race here as we come to 2020. We popped that up there. Let me go back to it since I just showed it to our viewers for the first time. We're not paying much attention to this because of this. Relatively low turnout. Again, it's almost like a primary process. Republicans show up at a caucus site and vote, but the president walking away, if you're a Republican, wondering about what's happening in Iowa tonight. But on the Democratic side, this is a stunner. This is a stunner, but we also do expect when we do start to get results, they'll come in fairly quickly. We'll see in 20 minutes or half an hour if that proves to be true.
We'll see if that's true, but the drama is going to be intense right now. Much more of our special coverage right after this.
To caucus for Cory Booker. They do not want to give their delegate away to someone else. They want to hold on to it. So it's this big campaign.
All right, it's getting close to 10 p.m. here on the East Coast. Almost 2 hours these caucuses have been underway, and so far no official results yet. This is pretty unusual, Jake. 4 years ago, I think about 70% of the official vote of the precincts, 70% of the precincts had already reported numbers. Now it's 0% of the precincts.
It is indeed. Of course, there are many more candidates this time around. Last time it was really just between Sanders and Clinton. This time there are lots of candidates. Let me just give you an idea of what's going on just in this one precinct. Now, just remember, it's just one, Des Moines 47, just this one precinct out of almost 1,700 precincts. But right now what we're doing is we're getting official counts from each different preferential group, finding out 1 vote for Gabbard, 1 vote for Deval Patrick, 3 votes for Cory Booker, etc. That's the Pete Buttigieg people finding out that they made the viability threshold with 70-something caucus goers supporting.
71 for Pete Buttigieg.
71 for Pete Buttigieg. You just heard that. That's more than the 56, which is required to be the 15% threshold. As you can see, Joe Biden came in 6th here in this first vote with 22 caucus goers. He was surpassed by Yang with 24 and Amy Klobuchar with 26. But none of those candidates, Biden, Yang, or Klobuchar, made the viability threshold. And the question is, what are their supporters going to do? We talked to the Klobuchar people and said, are you going to go join the Biden people because they want you to join them? Or are you going to disperse into other groups? And basically, they're going to disperse. A couple of them are going to go to Sanders. Most of them are going to be split between Buttigieg and Elizabeth Warren. The big question right here is what is going to be the final tabulation on the second vote? Because remember, this is just the first vote. People who are people who are with candidates who are not viable are going to then go join viable candidates. So who is ultimately going to win? Right now, we know that Pete Buttigieg made the threshold. We know that Bernie Sanders made the threshold. We know that Elizabeth Warren made the threshold. What are the other dozens of people going to do? Which groups are they going to join? And obviously, even if you come in third here, if you're viable, you get a percentage of the delegates. So that's what's going on here. I don't know what's going on statewide, but they did get many more caucus goers here than they thought they were going to. So if perhaps this is a very high turnout election, maybe that's the reason why things are taking a little longer than normal. Wolf?
Well, it's a cliffhanger, at least right now. We'll see what happens. Jake, thanks very much. Let's go over to David Challey. And David, I understand you've been speaking with some officials over there in Iowa. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I was just texting with a party official in Iowa who says that the party is doing quality control on some of the results coming in right now, and that they should be reporting out some vote near the top of the hour, about 15 minutes from now. But at this moment, what they're doing, according to this party official, is quality control of the reporting results they are getting from these precincts at the moment.
What does that mean, quality control?
Well, I think they're making sure that the numbers match up, that what is being reported in is how many cards were, those preference cards that were collected, all the checks of the numbers that the party is able to do with the precinct sites is what's underway right now, and they expect in about 15 minutes at the top of the hour to actually start reporting out results.
Give us some perspective. The record turnout at Democratic caucuses in Iowa, at least, was in 2008, and what was the number then?
240,000 roughly caucus goers at that time. It wasn't just a record, Wolf. That was explosive turnout. I think some 60% of the electorate that year were first-time caucus goers. This was the Obama revolution that catapulted him to the nomination and onto the White House. We didn't see that level of turnout in 2016. It was about 171,000 total caucus goers.
That's a lot less.
And turnout. It is a lot less. And I think most, at least in the last week that I've been in Iowa and talking to a lot of folks on the ground there, the expectation was that it could fall between the two, and that perhaps this year could approach the 2008 number, but not maybe overtake it, but probably not as low as 2016. But we'll see. We'll have to wait for all these returns to come in, all those head counts to be done, and we'll get a total turnout number at the end of the night. We don't have a sense of that just yet. And only precinct by precinct, anecdotally.
We're going to get the popular vote number, so we will have an exact number of how many people showed up.
And that is brand new this year. Well, if we have not gotten that information before from the Iowa Democratic Party for the first time, and largely because Bernie Sanders and his allies fought for this in reforms of the way this is done after his bitter battle with Hillary Clinton in 2016. Sanders and his camp fought for reforms, and they got this reform. Not just will state delegate equivalents, the all-important percentages that determine the winner of the Iowa caucuses, but there will be this new data stream of the popular vote. We will learn the popular vote for the first round of voting before the realignment process, as well as the final round of voting, popular vote. Again, that's not how the winner's determined. Think about like the general election in November, the popular vote and the Electoral College. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. Donald Trump is president because he won the Electoral College, because that's the metric that matters. The metric that matters tonight is state delegates. And whoever comes out on top in the percentages of state delegates, they are going to be the winner of the Iowa caucuses. That's what feeds the process forward in terms of getting national convention delegates that you need to get the nomination in Milwaukee at the convention in the summer. But there will be this new metric. We're going to see the popular vote, and I am sure that you're going to hear some candidates tout, hey, I did really well in the popular vote, even if I didn't come out on top in the delegates.
We'll see what happens. Thanks very much. Getting numbers, we assume, right near the top of the hour. Anderson, over to you.
Yeah, Will, thanks very much. I want to talk to both David Axelrod and the governor about this, because what is it like when you're with a campaign and you were sitting there just watching? I mean, first of all, we've never seen the caucuses up close like this before, but just waiting on caucus night for this process.
Well, it's harder in a caucus in certain ways because the counting is abstruse. It's a lot more linear. In a primary campaign, you get results from counties. You know what your target number is there, and so on. But these numbers are coming in very slowly. Multiple candidates. It's agonizing. And the question is, the one we were talking about earlier. Will you beat your expectation to the point where you get to play into the next round?
Right. Do you get a ticket out of Iowa?
Right. And, we talked about Biden's situation. For someone like Amy Klobuchar, who's staked everything on Iowa, this is a very, very big night. Does she do well enough to say she'll probably go on to New Hampshire, but to raise the money to go beyond that? So there are a lot of anxious campaigns right now. You know, wondering if they've made their number.
Yeah, Governor McAuliffe, especially given the lateness of the votes.
Well, like David, I've been in 10 of these. I've traveled to all 99 counties in Iowa. I can remember in 2008 when I was chair of Hillary's campaign. Agonizing is an understatement.
I thought it was exhilarating.
We had been told, the night before she was going to win 35.2, da-da-da-da-da. And I'll never forget it. Anderson and I went back into the hotel and got a call. President Clinton was looking for me. You know, results weren't in yet, so I went up to the suite. And I had just been told before I went into the suite that we were going to come in third place. And, you know, no one had thought third place. And I'll never forget it. I walk in the suite. The president's there all alone. I think he was watching the Warner Brothers football game on that day. He says, "Hey, Mac, you want a beer?" I said, "A beer? I'll take a keg." He says, "What happened?" I said, "You didn't hear? We came in third." And I'll never forget the moment. And Hillary was in the bedroom. She came out. I told her. And then, you know, onward we left at 3:30 in the morning, headed off to New Hampshire. But it is
you did well there.
The stress these candidates are going through right now. You just don't know. It's not like a primary.
So when something like that happens, you tell them immediately.
Yeah.
But
what else you gonna do?
Well, I would run. I would go somewhere else.
No, I was on the other end in New Hampshire when we were Obama was supposed to win. Hillary, it's clear we're looking at returns and we're not going to make it. And David Plouffe, our campaign manager, Robert Gibbs, our communications director, we're sitting there saying, all right, who's going to go up and tell them? And we finally agreed we'd all go up. We knocked on the door. We said, can we speak to you in the hall? And he came out and he knew that we pulled him out into the hall away from Mrs. Obama. This was not going to be good news. And it was it was an uncomfortable conversation. You know,
I was on the other side of that. I was in the car with Hillary riding to New Hampshire. We got the word that she'd won. So
and the reaction?
I then had the beer that I was entitled to.
But you know what's interesting is 41 delegates here, right? I'm sure a lot of America is saying this is far less than a tenth of a percentage of all the delegates you need to get elected. Why is it so important? But this is the filter through which you pass.
First.
Iowa doesn't pick winners, but it definitely picks losers. You know,
Joe Biden doesn't have a great history with Iowa. And it's been a state he's lost twice. And, I think it's not.
He doesn't have a great history running for president.
Running for president.
But it's because of, partly because of Iowa.
I want to ask this question. Are the candidates themselves interested in looking online and looking at publicly available information on entrance polls?
Well, I'm sure they're
I can tell you, Bill Clinton did, yes. Hillary Clinton never did.
And
Bill Clinton can tell you every precinct, every neighbor.
Right.
He knew every number.
Anderson, can I say I don't want to diminish the significance of tonight. It's the first of the year, and it's a very big deal. But I wonder whether tonight's bump will be that which you normally get coming out of Iowa because of this news cycle. We're into the State of the Union tomorrow. We're into the completion of impeachment the following day, and before you know it, it's off to New Hampshire. So I don't know that whomever is crowned the victor tonight will get their role.
I think that the bump may not last, but if the bottom falls out, I think it hurts. And I think look, listen, a Pete cannot collapse tonight. If Pete collapses tonight, that's going to be a very, very hard thing for him to recover from.
You think so? What does that mean? Top two? For
well,
him,
listen, I think when you talk about somebody who's put his entire campaign is I can do well in Iowa because I can appeal to these kind of voters, and I'm a better choice for moderates than for Biden. If he can't pull that off, if he's not in the top 1, 2, or 3 tonight, anyway. So I agree with you. The bump may not. Hey, listen, the bump may not get you there, but the fall is a real fall.
But if there's just a whisker that separates some at the top tonight, is it really fair for someone to proclaim that
that's a
won
different
the
question?
Iowa
Is it
caucus?
really fair? But the history of this is small differences can make a huge amount of difference in the race. John Kerry edged out John Edwards, and that was the end of Edwards' race in 2004.
And it's psychological, right? For people who are supporting these candidates, people who want to give to these candidates, if you come out on top, even if it's by a whisker, I mean, that puts some fuel in your campaign.
And these campaigns are really run by real people, and that's one of the things I love about what's happening tonight is you're seeing all these real human beings out here doing real hard work, and if you pull off a win, it puts energy in your sails, and the people in New Hampshire are going to be able to fight harder and work harder. Well, if you don't, it does have knock-on effect.
No, I think that's absolutely right. And to offer a contrasting vision, where it was one of my first elections participating in 2016 when I was on the Bernie 2016 team. And so this night, you know, 4 years ago was a nail-biter, and I don't want to underestimate the power of if Bernie Sanders comes in first and second, the testament that says to grassroots movements and the amount of young people that have come in since then have really propelled that. And I think the same with Elizabeth Warren.
You saw up close that feeling of surpassing expectations and getting a big push through Iowa.
And I think like making people feel like they can be a part of changing history in the direction of the United States is a hugely powerful thing that you may not be able to calculate. And I think that's where, you know, a lot of politicians look at polls as static, and Bernie and Elizabeth Warren have looked at, no, how do I shift public opinion to change it? And that's authentic and it's real, and I think it's coming to bear.
So much of the pre-Iowa conversation is about electability, and it is a completely hypothetical conversation until tonight. Like we have learned a lot in the last year plus of this campaign. You know, we learned how to pronounce Buttigieg. We learned not to call women candidates likable. Tonight might be the night that we learn that this idea of electability is just an idea until people actually start voting. Iowa regularly shows you that somebody who you thought was not electable is in fact electable, and vice versa, and we could be seeing that tonight too.
Can I go back to Michael's point for a moment about the order of things? And it depends who edges out whom.
And by how much.
And by how much. So if they're all bunched up, so let's just say, I'm making this up, Amy Klobuchar edges out Joe Biden. That's a problem for Joe Biden. It really depends on the candidate. And even though your point is right, they're all bunched up, it's less than, say it's less than 3 points between them or whatever, it still, it doesn't play into the narrative that Joe Biden has of being electable, and it plays into, if it were Amy Klobuchar.
I think if Amy Klobuchar beats, if she dumps anybody into 5th place, it's a one-way ticket to Palookaville for them.
That's right. That's right. No, absolutely. So it depends.
I just think
it depends on the order.
You know, here we are, first of the year. Many of us were conditioned on what happened in 2016 with the Republican winner-take-all system.
Right.
Right? That's not what we're headed for here. This is going to go for a while. It's a proportionate system, and the idea that there's somebody who wins all those delegates, it's just not happening.
And don't forget, it's different this time because you've got Michael Bloomberg, whose whole theory is Biden will not come out of the first 4 strong. That is his whole theory on March 3rd to spend $1 billion. You also have Tom Steyer, who is another billionaire spending a lot of money in South Carolina. So it's different than other Iowa caucuses that we have seen. You've got an unknown factor in 4 weeks.
How do you see the Bloomberg factor? I mean, you've done a lot of these races.
I mean, I live in Virginia, Northern Virginia. There's an ad-on every 3 minutes. I mean, you can see the polling number. He's beginning to go up dramatically. He's hired probably 1,500 staff. He's paid them all the way through the end of November. You can't tell me that it's not going to have an impact.
Yeah, and he's getting all of these endorsements, a lot of endorsements from African-American mayors.
But voters don't know it.
Mayor of D.C., Mayor Bowser.
But you have never, ever seen any product ever with $1 billion rollout. The iPhone didn't have $1 billion rollout. So this is a completely different scenario. He's not just spending money on television, though basically everything on television is him. He's also hiring hundreds of people a week, and he's hiring some of the best talent out there.
He's hiring everybody who's coming off of Booker, coming off of Castro, coming off of Harris. Like these are major Democratic operatives who are now going to Bloomberg, which means not only are they working for him, they're not going to be working against him. And that's something that he has done to great effect in New York City, hiring a bunch of Democratic operatives and making sure that they are at least nominally on his side.
We're going to have a lot of time to talk about Bloomberg after these after these first 4 primaries, when he makes his debut into this race. But one point I wanted to make about this Iowa process. You know, Elizabeth Warren invested a lot of money in organization. Pete Buttigieg, a lot of money in organization. They got here early. They got great local organizers. You can see in these scenes that we've seen why it matters to have good organizers, because when you get into this haggling with the people who are supporting unviable candidates, you know, knowing who they are, what the arguments are that will move them, is a real advantage in this.
You also see the importance of a personal connection.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of the people that Jake and others and Dana have interviewed, you know, met Elizabeth Warren or met Bernie Sanders and felt a connection. And who else is going to come out and spend a whole night in these auditoriums in this kind of confusion?
Can I say something about caucus? I do want to say this, though. I love this stuff because I'm a big nerd. This is like the nerdiest reality television show ever. I love it. It's wonderful. But I think for other people, they're looking at this, and I think they may see, this is weird.
Yeah.
It's like some weird parlor game I don't understand. Yep. And so on the one hand, it's so fun to see all this sort of stuff. On the other hand, I wonder, you know, how it's impacting people who are trying to...
This is like cheer for me.
Let me tell you, Anderson, it gets weirder if you are in the room. All of us have been in these caucuses. I will shovel your sidewalk for the next 6 months.
Well, that's the point.
I will give you chocolate chip cookies for a year. I'm telling you, this is what's going on right now. The
You're trying to convince your neighbors. Yeah, talking to your neighbors. And you're saying, okay, not that I'll shovel your sidewalk, but you know me well. You know what I think. Do you respect me? Do you like me? Can you come on over because your person wasn't viable? And by the way, can we think of a new word other than viable and unviable?
I mean, what we're seeing is a real tiny slice of this big picture of the state, right? We've got about like 5 or 6 precincts we keep going to, and there's 1,600.
A tiny slice of a tiny state.
Yes, of a tiny state.
But this is what voters do.
Right,
No,
but can I say, I used the word passion earlier in the evening because this is not depth. This is passion that gets rewarded. Stop and think about this. You know, I've never cast a ballot without that curtain being closed. There's a threshold issue. You need to be willing to go out and let people see you sitting under somebody's banner. So there's only a certain type of person willing to go out and have people see how they're voting.
Absolutely.
But they're used to it in Iowa.
Yeah.
It's Iowa.
And they've tried to open up the process a bit and make it a little bit more democratic. I'll have some,
on this issue of passion, the argument, Biden's argument is vote Biden, beat Trump. And he was hoping that would get people passionate, but it's kind of a tactical argument, and it's hard to arouse people that way.
I want to go to Wolf, who's getting some results. Wolf?
All right, thanks very much, Anderson. It's been now more than 2 hours since the Iowa caucuses started. We're awaiting still. We expect to get them very soon, but we're awaiting the first official results. But I want to check in with Jeff Zeleny. He's in Des Moines. You've got the final results there at the caucuses at Drake University?
Wolf, we do. We are at Precinct 35 here in Des Moines at Drake Fieldhouse, and you can see, 38, excuse me, there's a little bit of a fatigue setting in for the Pete Buttigieg supporters, but they do have something to cheer about. They were viable. But, Wolf, let's go through the numbers. Let's take a little step away over here. Elizabeth Warren, she's leading the way here in this precinct, 31.7%. You can see the numbers on the left of your screen. Pete Buttigieg, 26.9%. Bernie Sanders, 25.2%, and uncommitted, 16.2%. Let me explain that. The uncommitted is a big group of people who decided to support Cory Booker. It was some Cory Booker supporters here on Drake University's campus who convinced the Amy Klobuchar, the Joe Biden, and some others to come over to their side. So essentially, they will be listed as other or uncommitted, but they're calling themselves the Cory Booker Caucus. Now, the question here is, and I asked several of them, what does that say about party unity? Why did you decline to go to Elizabeth Warren or go to Pete Buttigieg? Well, let me pause for 1 second here. They're announcing how many delegates are going to be announced right here. Bernie Sanders getting 1 delegate to the county convention here. Elizabeth Warren getting 2. And Pete Buttigieg, you can see right here behind me, getting 2 delegates to the county convention. Well, this is significant. 4 years ago, Bernie Sanders won this precinct here on Drake University's campus, Des Moines Precinct 38. He did not win it tonight. Certainly he had a strong showing, but he did not win. Elizabeth Warren's campaign won this precinct. Let's go over to their group for 1 second and see what they're thinking. It took a little bit longer because they were recounting and unusual circumstances of the Cory Booker. So Elizabeth Warren fans, you won tonight. You happy?
Yes, excited. Very happy.
It took a little while.
It did. This whole Cory Booker thing was a little weird.
Does that say anything about party unity, do you think?
No, I don't know. I think it's just uniqueness.
On a college campus? Maybe?
Sure. Way to stand out.
So definitely this night now here will be over in terms of the counting, but boy, I can tell you so many people have asked me what is going on statewide, so we do look forward to seeing the rest of those numbers. Wolf, back to you.
We anticipate getting them very soon. Let's go over to David Chalian, who's doing some of his numbers. We're getting some results, I take it, right now. The entrance poll numbers that you had earlier showed that the early leaders in alphabetical order were Biden, Buttigieg, Sanders, and Warren. But you're getting real numbers now, not an entrance poll.
Well, it's just the numbers that all of our reporters at the various caucus sites that they've been at have been reporting in, right? It's the numbers that we've been showing on the screen. You just saw at the caucus site that Jeff Zeleny was at. You know, if you take a look, you see there, that 31.7%, 26.9%, that is just at that Des Moines caucus site there, 25.2%. But you will remember, Wolf, that what you have here, what's happening here, is that they're trying to get to that final calculation with those percentages to determine the state delegates. That is the metric that is going to determine the winner tonight. So we are just looking at, and as you've been saying all night, you can't take one precinct and think we understand what's happening statewide. But we are able to look at these individual precincts where we're at and see what numbers are getting reported back to the state party. And what we're waiting on is for them, the state party, the Iowa Democratic Party, to report those numbers back out. The first round of voting of how people separated themselves when they showed up, then the second round of voting when some candidates were not viable, how that got separated out in the caucus site, and then the determination of those state delegate equivalents. And that happens at each of these 1,700 sites. And then when they have that final information, both the popular vote and the state delegates, they send that into the state party, and then the state party will start reporting that out publicly and to news organizations, and we'll have that.
Because what's a little confusing to me is that if our reporters are getting these actual numbers when they conclude some of these caucuses, what's taking the state Democrats so long to release the numbers?
If only we had 1,700 reporters and had one in every single precinct so that we could send those numbers back like you have on the screen. But what a state official told me is that what they're trying to do is some quality control right now. They're trying to make certain that what they report out as official results is accurate, reflects exactly the numbers that are sent in from each of these precincts. And, you know, I certainly am not going to begrudge them for trying to make sure that they report out accurate information.
Certainly not. All right, you know, we're getting some numbers from our reporters, including Miguel Marquez, who's joining us from Cedar Rapids right now. You've got some final results over there, right?
We have final results, and I can tell you some of the confusion with getting those numbers out is part of this new process. There were 437 caucus goers that walked into this basement tonight, and there are 435 votes because 2 of them got spoiled. Walking away with this in this particular precinct, Precinct 25, is Pete Buttigieg with 115 votes of those 437. That's 26.5% of the vote. Elizabeth Warren, Senator Elizabeth Warren, she had 86 voters. That's 19.82%. Up next was Amy Klobuchar, had 80 of those voters, 18.43%. And Joe Biden with 73 caucus goers with 16.82%. And Bernie Sanders with 80 individuals who caucused for him at 18.43%. So 2 of the votes were spoiled here. They are now going around to elect those individuals that will be the delegates to the county convention here, and they will break down. There are 9 delegates available for this particular precinct, and they will elect those delegates now, and we will soon find out exactly how many delegates will be reported on to the county for this precinct. Back to you.
All right, Miguel, thanks very much. 5 viable candidates over there out of the 11 candidates who have been running. And right now, so far, John, we got nothing coming in from the state Democrats.
We got nothing, and this is confusing to people watching at home because they see Michael Bloomberg, they say he's not competing in Iowa. They see Tulsi Gabbard, she hasn't really contested Iowa. She's been focusing more on New Hampshire. This is alphabetical order of the candidates. That's how the computer program stacks them until we get results. This is what's astounding. 99 counties that are just all gray right now as we wait. And this is going to be interesting. State party officials say they're doing quality control. Our reporters at some of these sites say they've had to double check and triple check some of the counts. A question about a ballot there, question about a ballot there. That's what happens in a caucus process when you're using paper ballots, when you're spread out all over the state, when you're not coming in using some sort of a computer that has a backup. And this has been one of the controversies for years, but especially this cycle. Remember, Iowa was going to have virtual caucuses at the beginning on, and they pulled back on that plan. There's been a lot of controversy in the Democratic Party nationally and even within Iowa about whether this is a good idea. And I think the delays tonight are only going to fuel some of the questions about, is this the right way to do it in the very first process of 2020? That being said, the candidates, I've been in the back texting and emailing with people at some of these campaigns, they're all anxious. They're all incredibly anxious because they know how important this is to them. And so they've been working for months, working for more than a year, spending millions of dollars in many cases, and they're all sitting around right now. If you're Pete Buttigieg, this is critical to you. If you're Senator Klobuchar, it is absolutely critical to you. Can Bernie Sanders, he won't match his 49% of delegates from 4 years ago, but I was out there over the weekend. Everyone thought the momentum was with him. Elizabeth Warren needs to stay close to him as you have the battle of the progressives. And then, of course, there's the former vice president of the United States on the ballot here. And so the stakes are enormous. So we are frustrated waiting for the results to come in. The state party says it's just doing due diligence to make sure it gets it right. You think we're nervous? You should talk to the candidates.
And just to give us some perspective, at 10 p.m. Eastern, 2 hours after the caucuses started going, we had 70% of the precincts already reporting. Right now, we have 0% of the precincts reporting.
Right, and so that, look, there are more candidates this time. So give some grace, but to your point, this came in pretty quick. This came in pretty quick, and it was very close. So it's not like it was a blowout. It's not like it was easy to count. You know, there's stress at caucus sites when you're reporting results that are so close. If you just go through some of the counties, this one's not so close. But if you keep moving around, this one, as we went through the state, 60% there. It's not as close there. If you come into these, some of these are easy to count, Wolf, but some of them are not. If you come over to this part of the state, you see places like this, 50 to 41. If you're in these precincts within this county, that's a tough task. But they want to go back to that. You know, it was easy to do. Now we're looking at this, and we're just waiting, finally, for some calls to come in.
I assume we're going to get those numbers fairly soon, and then once they come in, they'll come in quickly, and then we'll probably start hearing from candidates themselves, delivering some speeches. Much more of our coverage right after this. Welcome back. It's still more than 2 hours since the Iowa caucuses started. We still don't have any official results from the Democrats. David Chalian, you're beginning to get some answers. What's taking so long?
Well, let's not call it answers. We're just getting a characterization that they are doing quality control for the returns that they are getting from the precincts. Again, more than 1,700 precincts across the state reporting into the state party. And the state party is doing some quality control checks to make sure they are confident that the numbers they're getting and reporting out publicly are accurate. People are still caucusing, and we are working on reporting results soon, is what one party official has told CNN. You know, it is hard when you look at the clock and you see it's 10:16, Wolf, to not begin to wonder if something may be askew. I mean, how long, we're not getting a sense of how long does the quality control take, what exactly is the quality control process that the party is undertaking right now, because this is far later than when we've seen reports in Iowa caucuses past of the vote coming in. And so, you know, now the party, they're sticking to this notion of we're doing quality control checks. I'm not sure how much longer they can just sort of say that and not have questions surrounding whether or not is there some reporting problem? Is there something askew, or is everything fine and they're just being super cautious? But then give us a little bit more information perhaps about what the process is underway for this quality control. I think, you know, you're going to start to see more and more need for the state party to sort of say something beyond we're just doing quality control.
Yeah, just to give some perspective, 4 years ago at this point, 2 hours plus in, about 70% of the precincts had been reporting this time. Not. All right, let's go back to Jeff Zeleny. What are you hearing about all of this, Jeff?
Wolf, there's no question that party officials and campaign officials are wondering where these results are. Of course, we have, seen individual precincts on our air and hearing reports from across the state. But there is a big question here in Des Moines tonight where those results are. And we're getting this from a state party official who tells CNN this. We are doing quality control checks, as David was saying earlier, making sure the numbers are accurate. People are still caucusing. We're working to report results soon. Now, that is not an explanation. It is a bit of a pause button, if you will. So, Wolf, I am not surprised at all that the counting is longer than 4 years ago. If you'll remember, on the Democratic side, it was Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. There was no realignment. It was essentially a straight count, which is what the Republicans do. But this year, of course, much more complicated. So many more candidates. So there was a realignment process. But it begs the question, what is going on with these numbers? Of course, we want accurate numbers. Of course, this is what the state party says they're trying to do here. But, Wolf, we are efforting more information from state party officials. We do know earlier in the day, some officials, Linda Nelson, the chairwoman of the Pottawatomie County Democratic Party in Council Bluffs, said her app wasn't working. So, Wolf, we're working on this, and we'll get you more. But right now, no results, as you know.
All right, thanks very much. As soon as you get some more information, we'll get back to you. Let's go over to Ryan Nobles. He's over at Bernie Sanders' headquarters. How are folks over there reacting? They want to get the results as fast as anyone.
You're absolutely right about that, Wolf. And this crowd started shuttling into this venue here by the airport in Des Moines about 2 hours ago, and they really have had nothing to react to. The results now are just not coming in, and there's no real sense of frustration right now, but there is a general sense of anxiety because they came here expecting to celebrate a victory for Bernie Sanders in his campaign. And I do have to say, just in talking with Sanders campaign officials, they also don't have much information to provide. I asked a campaign official just a few minutes ago about where they feel they're standing right now, and they said, you need to ask the Iowa Democratic Party because they know just as much as we know in terms of the results coming in. Now, we should point out, Wolf, that these campaigns, especially the larger campaigns, those in the top four especially, do have precinct chairs, people in each one of these venues who their responsibility is to track this progress and then report back to their campaign headquarters. But still, there seems to be a lack of information, or at least an unwillingness to share that information with us. As you can see, since we've been up on the screen here in this room, we did get a reaction from the Sanders supporters here. They still feel pretty confident. They still believe that Bernie Sanders is in a strong position to win. But right now, they're like all of us, just waiting to see when these results will come in.
Waiting and waiting and waiting. Ryan Noble's over at Sanders headquarters. Arlette Saenz is over at the Biden headquarters, also in Des Moines, for us. What are you hearing? What are you seeing over there?
As you can see, since we've been up on the screen.
Well, people here are very eager to start hearing results. The campaign has not heard anything specifically about why the results have yet to start to come in, but we've seen people starting to file into this caucus night headquarters party. They're still waiting to see exactly how their candidate is going to perform this evening. We've heard some anecdotal stories as we've seen played out at each of these caucus sites, but the Biden campaign has still been arguing that Iowa is not necessarily a must-win for him in this primary and caucus process. They keep pointing to the states beyond, like South Carolina and Super Tuesday states, where they see a strong, diverse demographic that is supporting the former vice president. Now, he has poured a lot of resources into this state, and so they're hoping that they can finish tonight with a strong showing. But right now, just as everyone across the state is, they're waiting to hear what those first results might be for the evening. Wolf.
And Arlette, at some point, we do expect to hear from the former vice president there, right?
We sure do, and the former vice president has been back at his hotel watching these results come in. I spoke with his wife, Jill Biden, earlier today, who told me that they are going to be with their grandchildren. He's also with some top advisors, and he is closely watching how exactly this vote is going to come in. You know, Joe Biden spent a lot of time in rural areas. He focused a few of his bus tours in those rural, smaller areas where they think he could potentially have a stronger showing. So that is an area that they're going to be keeping an eye on tonight as these results begin to come in.
All right, thanks very much, Arlette. Thanks very much. I want to go to MJ Lee. She's over at Warren headquarters. You know, 4 years ago, at this point, almost 85% of the precincts had reported. Right now, as you know, MJ, 0% of the precincts have officially reported. How are folks over there at the Warren headquarters reacting?
That's right. Well, you know, here at Elizabeth Warren's election night headquarters in Des Moines, people are starting to fill into the ballroom, so there is a level of excitement here. But you're absolutely right. The TVs are turned on to CNN, and everyone is waiting for these results to start trickling in. And we know that Senator Warren was at her hotel earlier to watch these results coming in, and she also visited a caucus site to try to get people excited in these final minutes. And I will tell you, talking to some of these people who are in the room right now, there are mixed emotions. One woman that I talked to, for example, who just got here from a caucus site, she said that she was feeling really sad because where she was at her site, Elizabeth Warren was not viable the first round, and so she ended up having to choose a second choice because Warren was not viable, and that second person was Bernie Sanders. And she says that she felt uncomfortable choosing Bernie Sanders, but simply did not feel like there was another candidate that she could choose. Another woman I talked to was in a much better mood. She said that at the caucus site where she was at, Elizabeth Warren was definitely viable, had a lot of supporters in her corner, and then during the second round, she actually ended up getting more people in her corner, and a lot of them were Andrew Yang supporters. So a lot of excitement and nervous waiting game here at Elizabeth Warren's election night party, Wolf.
Very interesting, Art. MJ, thank you very much. Abby Phillip is over at Pete Buttigieg headquarters, also in Des Moines. I assume the crowd over there is anxious for some numbers.
They are, Wolf. The crowd is trickling into this room behind me, and we just heard a little bit of a chant breaking out as they're waiting for all of these results to come in. Now, Wolf, over the last couple of minutes, talking to campaign aides back in South Bend and here in Des Moines, they are looking and relying on their own organizers who are on the ground in precincts all across the state. And what they are hearing and what they've told CNN is that they feel pretty good about what they're seeing out there. They're seeing some strong results for Buttigieg in rural counties and in suburban counties where they are beating their own expectations. So in lieu of these official results that we still all don't have yet, the campaign is starting to rely on what they have on the ground, and they're seeing some viability in some of these precincts that he spent a lot of time pounding the pavement over the last week and a half and more, really trying to get those voters out in the tiniest of towns, the smallest of precincts, and particularly these crucial 31 pivot counties that went from Obama to Trump. Wolf.
Abby Phillip over at the Buttigieg headquarters in Des Moines. All right, we're waiting for some numbers to come in. The Democratic Party in Iowa says they're doing, quote, quality control. Let's see what happens. We'll be right back.
Will, did you put down?
All right, looks like something's going on. It's now approaching 10:30 p.m. here on the East Coast. 2.5 hours after the Iowa caucuses, nearly 1,700 caucus sites. 2.5 hours after they started, they still have not reported anything yet. 0% of precincts reporting. 4 years ago at this time, about 80% of the precincts had already reported, maybe 85%. And as a result, something must be going on. Mark Preston and David Chalian are here. What are you hearing? I know you're talking to folks over there.
Yeah, well, certainly what we're hearing, and I know David has been talking to them as well, is that they're saying that they are trying to do this the right way, right? They're trying to go through their control checks. They are releasing not one data set. They're releasing 3 sets of numbers right now. So that could be the delay right now.
So they're saying it's more complicated this time than it was 4 years ago?
Well, it's an entirely different process, so it certainly is more complicated. And having said this, I mean, I have confidence in them, but I would say this, it is bringing in some concern and certainly wondering about what is exactly happening now behind the scenes.
And let's be clear.
Yeah, go ahead.
This was not the plan. Something is clearly off from the plan that the Iowa Democratic Party had at the start of the night. They did not expect to have no vote reporting at 10:30 Eastern at night. That is dramatically later than we've seen in the past. So Mark is right. It's a brand new process in the sense of what they're reporting out. Not just the state delegates, but also the popular vote for the first round and final round. So I understand that they are doing something brand new, and you can do a test drive, as the party did many times. And they did. I talked to a party official just a few days ago when I was in Iowa, telling me about the test drives that they did and the practice on this. But when it comes down to the actual caucuses, and you have hundreds of thousands of people showing up, you are not in a test drive mode, and there is no way that this is according to plan right now. Now, that doesn't mean that when they start to report vote, it could be accurate, it could be trusted. We don't know anything about that yet. All we know is they're doing quality control, but this was not the plan to not have votes this late at night.
They need these results quickly. You know, a couple hours ago or so, maybe we got a report from Jeff Zeleny, among others, saying Iowa's Democratic Party organization is troubleshooting what they described as multiple reports of technical trouble with a mobile app designed to transmit vote totals from precincts to state headquarters. And it quotes a party spokesperson, Mandy McClure, Iowa Democratic Party Communications Director, saying from the beginning they've been prepared to deal with issues of human error and poor cell service as they arise. The app is not the only option to forward precinct vote totals.
And it is not the only option. There is still the old trusted way of picking up the telephone and calling in the numbers, and they have a hotline set up. They did say that the problems with the app, though, earlier in the night were not consequential enough that it was going to cause problems for the vote count. You know, when we talk about the problems in the near term, of course, is this election. Who's going to be the winner? Who comes out? And will they feel that it has been valid, okay? But really, the long-term problem with a question about this is, can the Iowa caucuses survive, right? There's always been concern that the Iowa caucuses would not be able to survive another 4 years because of the fact of their quirky system and that they don't have the same kind of structure when it comes to geographic, but specifically race in their state.
I want to go to Abby Phillip. She's over at the Buttigieg headquarters. You know, Abby, Iowa's always been about momentum. The candidates come in, some of them do well, they get some momentum, they move on to New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, Super Tuesday, and all this. They want to speak, all these candidates, they want to deliver some speeches to their supporters, get themselves on television. It's now past 10:30 p.m. here on the East Coast, and we have 0% of the precincts reporting.
Absolutely, Wolf. This has really delayed for a lot of the campaigns their plans to say something, at least before most of the people on the East Coast and in the middle of the country go to bed tonight. But the delay in the results is causing some concern. My colleague Dan America is reporting among several of these Democratic campaigns here in Iowa, including the Pete Buttigieg campaign. You know, the candidates are waiting for these results to come in. They're relying on their own supporters on the ground, but the delay now is going well into the night when they had plans, and one aide said it just eats up time, valuable time for these candidates, many of whom are planning on getting on planes in the middle of the night, going to New Hampshire tomorrow morning and starting that whole process. So it's not clear how this is all going to go, but there are clearly some concerns about this delay and what is causing it. I talked to several other aides who are being pretty tight-lipped about how they are reacting to the lack of official results so far, Wolf.
Yeah, it's awkward at a minimum right now. What's going on, Abby? Thank you very much. I want to go to Kyung La. She's over at the Klobuchar headquarters, also in Des Moines for us. What are you hearing, Kyung, over there?
Well, Wolf, we spoke to a Democratic aide who is here at Klobuchar headquarters, and this Democratic aide has been pinging the Iowa Democratic Party, asking what is up. They think that something is up, and I'm going to read you this quote. It sure seems like something is up, but we don't know what it is, and that's the concern. They don't know what it is. The anxiety of not having anything to say. This campaign wants to tell a good story. They're relying on Twitter. They're relying on their precinct captains. And their early indication is that Senator Klobuchar is overperforming in places that were unexpected. She's doing well in precincts that are in the suburbs, in precincts that are more liberal. And they want to tell that story, but they also need the results to tell that story. So until that comes forward, at this point here at Klobuchar headquarters, they're just treading water, waiting for the results, hoping that the Iowa Democratic Party has some sort of explanation on what's happening here. A lot of confusion, concern about what exactly is going on here, Wolf.
Yeah, we'd like to know ourselves. All right, stand by. Everybody stand by. Much more of our special coverage of the Iowa caucuses right after this.
Back to our continuing coverage of the Iowa caucuses. You see a lot of action going on. It is 10:39 here on the East Coast. At this point in 2016, as Wolf alluded to earlier, we had 83.43% of the votes in. Right now, to paraphrase Rudy Giuliani, we have zero. Sean Hannity interview. Something else. Anyway, David Axelrod, what's going on?
Well, First of all, let me say, I was thinking back to 2008 when Barack Obama won the Iowa caucuses. I'm pretty sure that we were well into our cups by this time of night, and he had spoken. We're getting ready to love. I'm talking about others. We went when we were ready to take off for New Hampshire. You know, getting ready to take off for New Hampshire. So this is pretty. But there is this new system, and this is the price of transparency, and they're very eager not to get caught in conflicting data.
Right.
And I think that's what the quality control is. But it's there are a bunch of campaigns on the edge of their seats.
So the campaigns don't even know at this point. They get the.
Oh no, I think they're in the same position now. They're getting reports from their own people in precincts, and they're trying to put it all together that way. So they have some inkling as to what's going on out there, but certainly not the whole picture.
But they don't have people at. I mean, a campaign doesn't have. Do they have? Well, I guess they do have some people at every caucus site.
Some of the campaigns do, and some of the campaigns don't have every precinct covered. Those that are well organized are probably getting numbers called into them, and they are tabulating them themselves. So.
Yeah, but I was going to say, Iowa always gets this scrutiny about why it's first, because of the demographics, because of the undemocratic process. And I think given what is happening tonight, that scrutiny is going to really intensify.
I said
they have one job, right? To get results, be first in the nation, show that they can handle this process. And so far, it's clear that they haven't been able to handle it.
I'm old enough to remember 2012. When it took 2 weeks for Rick Santorum to figure out that he had actually won the Iowa caucuses by 1%, but we were saying the same thing at that time. I was just emailing with a Democratic pollster who said to me, the Iowa Democratic Party needs to make sure that the 3 sets of numbers are consistent with each other, which would be the hard vote, the popular vote, then the delegates, the delegate equivalents, and what's the third?
The first round.
First round. So, in other words, he said, not so easy. It's one of the costs of transparency. And so this new process, ironically, is supposed to be more transparent, except we don't have any numbers.
It's going to dilute the value. I said earlier that the news cycle.
This is true.
Totally. Yes.
Super Bowl yesterday, State of the Union tomorrow, impeachment the following day. I know we don't think in terms of newspapers, but there are still newspapers. Newspapers are going to go to bed soon. And therefore, whomever wins will be denied a headline in regional, smaller newspapers tomorrow that so-and-so won the Iowa caucus. So the bump is going to be limited.
And that's assuming that we know later tonight.
True.
I mean, look, this is starting to feel like, possibly like a real debacle where if there's some technical problems that they're not disclosing, we could be, very late on this. I mean, I just think that the idea of the caucus has failed to meet the viability threshold, okay? The idea of the caucus itself has failed to meet the viability threshold because we've all been saying the whole time, why Iowa in the first place? It's 90% white. When you have a party as diverse as this to be in a state that's not diverse is terrible. People need to be able to vote and go home. I don't like caucuses in the first place. But then if you can't even deliver on your one job, Nia Malika said it exactly right. You only have one job, Iowa. You got one job.
Governor, you've talked about this before. You and I have talked about this. How would you like to see, what state would you like to have come first?
Virginia. Well, first of all, Virginia, of course. But I think we should start regionally. I mean, you should do 3 or 4 or 5 states. You shouldn't have one. Shouldn't be Iowa. Shouldn't be New Hampshire. You look at these entrance data, 90% of the caucus goers today were white. Well, if you take the whole landscape of the election, it's 60%. So it's way skewed out of line. I would get rid of all the caucuses, first of all.
Well, they mostly are gone.
Well, there's 5 left. Yeah. They're undemocratic processes. People don't have time to go spend the time like you heard here today. Go vote, pull the curtain, close it, vote, and then leave. That is the democratic way. And think about it today. There's 2 million voters in Iowa. 745,000 registered voters are unaffiliated with a party. 613,000 are Democrats. The rest are Republicans, 645,000. So it's still a small turnout. We're talking 10, 15% of the eligible voters, 10 to 15% are going to have such a gigantic sway on who the nominee of the Democratic Party. When I was chairman, I brought up New Mexico, I brought up Arizona, I brought up South Carolina, I brought up Michigan to show our party's diversity. We got to get back to that.
We have come so much farther in this conversation, this cycle, than I have ever heard before. We had presidential candidates bring it up in Iowa, the need to not start with Iowa. I think it's widely recognized as an undemocratic, discriminatory process that most of us want to fix. This is certainly not going to help their case for why this is how we ought to kick the process off.
You guys make good points. There's also a case for rotating states.
Sure, absolutely.
Or combining the first 4 states.
You bet.
I'm sorry, we're getting some developments. Let's go to Wolf.
Oh, wow.
Thanks very much, Anderson. Mark Preston has been getting some information. We've all been trying to figure out what's going on. What are you hearing?
Well, Wolf, we have just got this new statement regarding the delay in the results. This is what they have to say. The integrity of the results is paramount. We have experienced a delay in the results due to quality checks and the fact that the IDP is reporting out 3 data sets for the first time. What we know right now is that around 25% of precincts have reported, and early data indicates turnout is on pace for 2016. Now, this is from the spokeswoman for the Iowa Democratic Party.
Now, we should take a look at what that means, because what that statement says is absolutely nothing new about why we don't have any votes yet. So they had already told us that they had quality control checks, right? We knew they were doing that. Clearly, they felt the pressure to put out a formal statement. That's what's new here. But now they're saying 25% precincts are reported. Okay, well, what does that mean? And why have they not? And if they've reported into the IDP,
IDP is the Iowa Democratic Party.
Why are they still doing quality control? If they can report out that 25% of the precincts
what happens to the other 75%?
But why can't they report the results of that? I think that's a question. If they know that 25, what is wrong with the quality check? So basically, they're buying time here. That's what the statement is trying to buy more time, put out something that says, hey, we're doing quality control checks. We got that. They are doing quality control checks. And as you said before, Mark, wisely, as now the statement is saying as well, they're reporting out these 3 data streams for the first time ever. But what this statement doesn't do in any way is explain what the issue is.
Well, what's interesting, too, is that we have some reporting, too, that shows that the app, we talked about this just a little time ago.
It's a new app.
That this new app where the folks who are running the precincts can report their results back in. Well, that app was breaking down. Now we're hearing from some of the precincts now that they are actually calling in because the app never works. So perhaps that could be the problem as well.
Because earlier they said, Mandy McClure, the communications director for the Iowa Democratic Party, IDP as it's called, Mandy McClure said, the IDP is working with any precinct chairs who want to use the optional tabulation application to make sure they are comfortable with it. We've always been aware that many precinct chairs prefer to call in results via a secure hotline and have systems in place so they can do so. They want to go back to the old school way of doing it, just calling in the numbers.
Right, which isn't, it doesn't really explain the delay, but isn't a surprise. Because, look, a lot of these people are they're all volunteers that are running these caucuses, and you have to assume some of them tend to be a little bit older. They might not even be technologically savvy enough that they want to do it on an app, and they feel more comfortable with the phone. But again, why haven't we seen the numbers yet? And we still haven't found out why.
Because they got to, obviously they want to make sure these are precise numbers. The quality control is very important, but I think they have to give us a little bit more explanation down the road. All these candidates, Anderson, all these candidates, they want to go on television. They want to deliver speeches. They don't want to do it in the middle of the night. They want to do it now, and they're getting 0 results so far.
Yeah, middle of the night. It could be in the morning. Back now with the panel. Van, you were just saying
I'm just looking on Twitter. You got a caucus secretary from a precinct who's just been, he says he's been on hold for an hour. He's just going to tweet out, just starting to tweet out.
He's been on hold for an hour with the Democratic Party.
With the Democratic Party. He can't get a response. So they're just starting to tweet out their results. This is starting to look like a debacle.
Wait, who is this tweeting?
This is Sean Sebastian on Twitter. He's just tweeting out his results. I'm the caucus secretary.
What's his job? Where is he?
I am the caucus secretary for Story County Precinct 1-1. I've been on hold for over an hour to report the results. We have 6 delegates. And he just reports out his first alignment, and the delegates. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just saying that you're starting to see a level of desperation set in, and it's starting to look like a debacle.
Well, the word from the party, which I just got from somebody working for the party, and they did just put out the update, is that they only have 25% coming in, right? As they were saying, why?
Right, again, and let's say again, it was 83.4% back in 2016. Why? And also, if you have 25%, why not release 25%?
That's right.
There are no machines. There are no ballots to count. This should actually be an easier process than a conventional election.
It's a bunch of
and everybody who was in those individual caucuses knows what the result was. This is entirely doable. It's frankly the third category I expect that's probably causing the complication when they're trying to do the translation, because they know how many initially came through the door and stood in the respective corners. They know how many then moved into someone else's category. Common sense dictates it's the third calculation.
But didn't they practice? Like, did they do dry runs running up to this?
They've always had to translate it into delegate equivalent. So I don't know.
It's not easy. It's right. It is not easy, but you should know how to do it.
Here's what I feel sorry for the young people, especially, who worked their butts off and did their jobs and knocked on those doors. And I mean, it's cold out there. It's tough out there. You got kids that quit school, who quit jobs, who believe in this country, who believe in this process, and who put it all on the line. And those young people, as well as the rest of us, they deserve to see a process that works. And listen, you know, democracy can be tough. It can be messy. We'll get to the bottom of this. But ordinarily by now, for people who are not used to this, you would be now hearing from the candidates, the ones who lost, the ones who won, and you're beginning to shape a way going forward. And instead, we're sitting here worrying about an app. You know, I don't know.
Well, the practical speaking is, these candidates, especially the winners, you've got a 3-hour flight now. You've got to get to New Hampshire tonight. So you've got to give your speeches. You got to thank your volunteers. You still got to get on a flight tonight, which everybody has private planes ready to go. This is going to delay them tremendously.
So
right. Yeah. So there's a statement. You know, there's a statement that Adam Levy of our polling bureau is reported, and they're saying what we know is that 25 of the precincts have reported. Early data indicates turnout is on pace. The integrity of the results is paramount.
Well, that's true.
We have experienced a delay due to quality checks, and we're reporting out 3 data sets, which we were talking about for the first time. And I think, again, to your question, didn't they practice?
Yeah, I mean, none of this is confidence inspiring.
Well, if you're a campaign, though, what do you decide to just go ahead to New Hampshire anyway? I mean, if you
they're going to have to report these results tonight. I can't imagine that we're going to go to bed.
Right, but couldn't you give your speech from New Hampshire?
No results.
If I were a campaign manager, I'd tell my candidate to go out right now. We don't know the results. I'd go out and give a speech right now.
Right.
I would tell my candidate, get out there right now on TV, start talking.
Now they will.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Well, you got nothing to lose. I mean.
Right.
I don't think that it would seem to be, I mean, right now we're a couple hours late on what we were expecting. I don't think that this would seem to be quite the crisis that it does if the Iowa process in general hadn't come under the kind of scrutiny that it has in the last few months. I think this is just sort of a cherry on top of the sundae that we knew was already pretty bad.
The good thing is that the people in Iowa did try to do some things that were tough, that were more inclusive. They allowed people to vote earlier. They had people around the world, so they did do stuff that was hard.
The
earlier stuff. So you see them, you know, responding to these things and trying to do, you know, more better. But it still doesn't work.
You're also seeing the process in a way that I mean,
the process has always been weird and messy. I mean, I have voted and I have caucused, depending on the state that I lived in. And there's something very strange about standing up in front of your neighbors and coworkers and teachers and friends and people you don't know or like and say, I'm with this person. That's odd.
Let's check back in with Jake and Dana, who are in Des Moines. Jake?
Yes, we're in beautiful downtown Des Moines, and we are in the media center here. And as you can see, it says behind me, results coming soon. I don't know if actually you can see that, but in any case, we are just sitting and waiting. We should note, Dana, that there is a sense of deja vu here. I remember the 2012 Republican caucuses. The night of the caucuses, it was so close. They said Mitt Romney had beat Rick Santorum by 8 votes. And then 2 weeks later, the Republican Party said, oh, I'm sorry, actually, Santorum won by 34 votes. There is a degree to which the parties in this state have difficulty with the responsibility they have been given in this first-of-the-nation caucus honor that they have.
And just by way of context, 4 years ago, at this hour, 90% of the results were in.
As opposed to 0?
As opposed to 0%. Yeah, and look, I mean, we've all been hearing and seeing that they're saying that they want to make sure that there's quality control, that there's the integrity of the results, which everybody applauds. But at some point, it would be nice to know what they actually mean by that. We were just down, not too far from here, at a pretty big caucus.
Yeah.
There were
more than 300 people.
More than 300 people there, and that took a while. Just in the room, it took a while. The counting was a little off at the beginning. They had to do it and redo it, and that was just in the room. We're waiting for them to see if they can actually transmit the results back to the state party.
But as our team has been as our team has been noting all week, there have been concerns raised about this new app this new app for the phones that the precincts were going to call into the party using this app, and questions about whether or not it worked properly. We've been reaching out to all the campaigns to try to find out if they know anything. They don't seem to know much more than we do. But let's go to Arlette Saenz, who covers the Biden campaign for us. And Arlette, you're, I think, at Drake University. What are you hearing from Team Biden? Do they have any idea what's going on? What are you learning?
Well, Jake, they're certainly working to find out what is going on with these delayed results. I spoke with an advisor who said that he's been in contact with the Iowa Democratic Party, spoken to them several times, and what they've been told is that they are checking with their data team, and they are going to keep the Biden campaign, as all campaigns, posted on an ETA for when they may get closer to releasing results. But this advisor told me that it's very frustrating to not have these results in just now, and also to not know exactly how this is all playing out. But here at Biden headquarters, there are certainly a lot of supporters who have filed in here for this event, eager to see how their candidate is going to do. One area that they're specifically interested in is those rural areas, but the Biden campaign is in contact with the Iowa Democratic Party and trying to get more information about these delayed results.
All right, Arlette Saenz, thank you so much. Dana?
And we have reporters all over the state with the key campaigns, all the campaigns, really. I want to get now to MJ Lee with the Warren campaign. And MJ, I know you've been working your sources. What are you hearing over there?
Well, Dana, here at Elizabeth Warren's election night party in Des Moines, the room is getting full, but the campaign does not know what's going on. And a senior aide that I was just speaking to tells CNN that with every minute that there is a delay, they worry that the process loses credibility. So it is clear that at this point in the evening, there is serious concern among some of these campaigns. And I will tell you, this obviously affects the plans that Senator Warren has for the night as well. Behind me, you can see the podium. And there are two teleprompters that are set up suggesting that she is going to give prepared remarks. At this point, we have no idea when that might happen. And also keep in mind, too, whenever she is finished, the plan is for her and her family, including her dog, and many of the reporters who cover Senator Warren to pile onto a plane and fly directly to New Hampshire overnight so that she can begin her campaigning there. So all of those plans are in flux right now as the campaigns wait to figure out what is going on with these delays. But again, the concerns are serious. The senior aide telling CNN that with every passing minute that there is a delay, they worry that the process will lose credibility. Dana.
All right, MJ Lee with Warren headquarters. Let's go now to Ryan Nobles, who covers Senator Bernard Sanders for us. Ryan, what are you hearing from Sanders HQ?
Jake, actually, just in the last few seconds as you were waiting to come for me, I did get a confirmation from a senior aide to the Bernie Sanders campaign that they have been called to a meeting by the Iowa Democratic Committee to discuss the delay in the results. He didn't have any information about what would come from that meeting, but he did confirm that the Sanders campaign does have a representative at this meeting. There's no indication at this point as to what exactly this conversation is going to be about, but we can now confirm that the Iowa Democratic Party is, at least from my perspective, I can tell you that they've reached out to the Bernie Sanders campaign to have a conversation as to exactly what this delay is about. So we're working to find out more information about that. But at this point, Jake, that's what we know. So I'll send it back to you.
All right, Ryan Nobles, thanks so much. And we're hearing anecdotally from a number of individuals who are precinct secretaries, precinct captains, talking about how they're having trouble with their apps, and they're having trouble even calling in to the Iowa Democratic Party.
That's right. And I want to get now to Abby Phillip, who is... Abby Phillip, go ahead with your reporting.
Hey, Dana. Well, we're trying to reach our sources right now about what's going on. And frankly, Dana, there's a lot of tight-lipped action happening here, especially with the Buttigieg campaign, not talking a whole lot about the problems. But one aide did tell me that they are just simply waiting to see what the results are. But I did speak to another aide from a different campaign, from the Biden campaign, that said that they believe that caucusers are still caucusing and that there are problems with the app that is supposed to be used for the reporting. So that's some of the reason that they have to explain for this delay. Meanwhile, the Buttigieg campaign is just relying on their own organizers. They've heard back from 76% of their precinct captains. They have captains in all 1,600 districts here, precincts here in Iowa. So that's what they're relying on now. Back to you, Wolf.
All right, thanks very much, Abby. It's the top of the hour. It's 11 p.m. Here on the East Coast, 10 p.m. Out in Iowa right now. 4 years ago, 90% of the precincts in Iowa had already reported the results in the Democratic presidential caucuses. Right now, 0% of the precincts have reported the results, and it's causing a lot of heartburn out there, especially among the candidates. They want to know what's going on. The candidates would like to go out and speak to the American people, speak to their supporters, and then move on to New Hampshire and elsewhere. You know, it's crazy what's going on. Mark Preston is here. David Chalian is here. So the latest information you've received from the Iowa Democratic Party is what?
Is that they were spending time to do quality control to ensure that the 3 data set numbers, which they have never released before, this is the first time, are accurate. Now, we have since found out from Ryan Nobles through the campaign that there's now can only be called an emergency meeting of campaign representatives with the Iowa Democratic Party to discuss we don't know what, but clearly this is not a good sign of where we're at.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were told we were going to start seeing reports of votes an hour ago, at top of the 10 o'clock hour, after this quality control delay.
Normally, we start receiving reports about a half an hour,
exactly. So we were already asking
after the caucus is open.
So we were already asking party officials, well, what's the deal? And we were told at the top of the 10 o'clock hour, after this quality control, we would start to say, we're now an hour past that. Now that campaigns have been called into a meeting where the party needs to inform them of what has gone on here, and by the way, still keep their confidence that whatever, if anything, ever gets eventually reported here is actually legitimate. Clearly, this is this isn't just a small problem they're dealing with, right? It is hard to imagine you would call in all the campaigns into a meeting, into your boiler room, if you're the state party running this process, if you're worried about one precinct over there or one precinct over there. This is clearly a larger issue now that they have to brief the campaigns on to make sure there's still integrity in the process.
It's going to call into question, Iowa. I mean, this is a serious problem. They got to fix this very soon, get the results out very soon. Otherwise, people are going to wonder, this is the first in the nation Democratic presidential election caucuses right now, and people have been waiting for 3 hours.
And there have been problems in the past. This brings me back to 2016, and I remember leaving Iowa just about this time on an airplane. We did not know who had actually won. There were 4 airplanes that left Iowa. I remember we all landed in New Hampshire. Now, the reason why I say this is when we landed, Bernie Sanders came out. He did not know that Hillary Clinton had declared victory of the Iowa caucuses, and he came out, and we had done an interview, and Chris Cuomo had pulled him aside. It was about 4:30 in the morning, and I said, Senator, you've lost the caucuses. And he said, what are you talking about? And again, it called it into question. What we've seen so far tonight is we've seen multiple campaigns now telling our reporters on the ground that they are now questioning what these results are. Heading into New Hampshire, there could be some question about who exactly the winner is.
And I think we're also going to have to start looking at, well, what was the reporting system here? This app that they were using, this new way of doing things, did that app system fail in some way entirely? And then I think you're going to start asking, we have to start asking the questions of, has it been infected in any way? Has there been any kind of interference? We don't know that, but these are now all the questions that are mounting in the absence of the reporting information that the party has to answer to have any belief and trust in the system.
And Wolf, when we talk about all these results too, and for most of the viewers out there, they're used to a primary system that's run by the Secretary of State or the election official who was appointed or elected in their state. This is being run by the state political party and by volunteers. So no surprise that we'd be running into some problems tonight.
The Iowa Democratic Party earlier, a woman, Linda Nelson, the county chairperson of one of the counties out there, posted a call for help on Facebook saying, I still cannot get my caucus app to work. I get to the point of adding my precinct PIN from the math worksheet. I continue to get the error message. What am I doing wrong? So obviously there's a problem with this new app that they brought in. But you know what? Now they may have to go back to the old-fashioned way of actually calling in specific results from nearly 1,700 precincts and getting the results.
And that's a really important point because remember, they have these cards. They have the presidential preference cards that you sign and you express your support. So there is a paper trail. The party has that system in place. So it will be attainable to go and look at those preference cards. And in fact, it was those preference cards that each of these precinct chairs were using to do the actual vote count. They would count the heads, and then that was the backup system, the way to verify how many people actually showed up in the caucuses. It looks like they're going to need to make sure and secure all of those presidential preference cards and make certain that they represent the reality of what occurred in those rooms.
Because the most important thing is to be precise and accurate. They don't want to rush it if they don't have the numbers and they're not confident in the numbers. They got to wait.
I mean, look, if the situation right now is that they want to be specifically and extra careful, that's understandable. But then we just go back to the fact that they have called an emergency meeting with some of the campaigns. I can't imagine that meeting is just to say, look, this is why, we've been late. We're going to release them now. I think you would just do that over the telephone. So I suspect we are going to find out very, very soon what exactly is happening.
And Terry McAuliffe, former governor of Virginia, made an important point. And David, I would just want to get your thought on this. He said if he were advising any of these presidential, he would send them out to speak right now while people are still awake on the East Coast.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt. I mean, in Central Time, it's 10 o'clock. An hour earlier, the local newscasts are beginning. Now would be a good time to capture a lot of attention. The problem is you don't know what the results are that you need to talk about. But at least you could go out and offer some assurance to your supporters and perhaps maybe just move on to New Hampshire if it doesn't look like we're going to get Iowa results anytime soon.
Right. Let's go to Jeff Zeleny and see. He's in Des Moines. What are you hearing over there, Jeff?
Party officials have been hunkering down, I'm told, in a war room near here, and they are really not saying much. They have summoned, as we've been reporting, campaign officials here to downtown Des Moines to have a briefing, essentially. I've talked to officials in a couple campaigns who literally are on their way for this private meeting for some type of an update. We are told, and information we should point out is very limited here, but we are told from officials from two campaigns that they believe, as we've been saying, that this is a delay from the app, the application that was designed to report this three-tiered reporting system. We heard reports earlier in the day that it had crashed for several people, several party chairs, so they were calling in the results old-fashioned way, if you will, and the lines have been jammed and other things. I did also talk to a separate state Democratic official who was in this hotline room, and he said the mood in there was fine. He said this is a lot of information to process, so they were taking their time. So that's the party line right now, that they are having a quality control check, but frankly the campaigns aren't buying it. And as David was saying earlier, they are losing valuable time here for momentum going forward. I was just at a precinct across town at precinct 38 at the Des Moines, at the Drake Fieldhouse, and the precinct chair there was also calling in the results over the phone, not using the app because of a glitch in the reporting. So it appears that the calling in these results is taking more time than the instantaneous app. We do not know if it's more than that. We don't know how widespread it is, but that is what we know here right now as those party officials, those presidential campaign officials, they thought they would be at their victory parties or licking their wounds perhaps. Now they're headed downtown Des Moines to try and find out from party officials what the holdup is. Wolf?
It's interesting, and give me a sense of the mood that you're seeing out there, Jeff, because there must be a lot of frustration, a lot of awkwardness right now. What's going on with the Iowa Democratic Party?
Sure. I mean, this is something that it's Central Time here, so it does not seem as late, if you will. I talked to one official who said it's only right before 10 o'clock, and this isn't that late. I said, but the results, as we've been talking about all evening long, have always come in much faster. In 2008, they certainly did. 4 years ago, they certainly did. And it is a different moment. They are reporting significantly different results. The raw total, of course, the popular vote, if you will, as well as the delegate equivalent. But the mood among presidential campaigns is one of worry and one of wonder exactly what's going out there. And some know exactly how they did and how they didn't do. So that is another thing. They're in a bit of limbo here. But I think average voters, have already gone home. I was texting with some voters who were at their precincts earlier, and they've been home for quite some time. So there is just a sense of where are these results. And you're talking about newspapers earlier. The deadline for the Des Moines Register, the state's largest newspaper, is about now. It's coming up on 10:30. So the winner almost certainly will not be on that front page, and that does matter. We, of course, have seen time and time again, Rick Santorum ended up being named the winner of the Iowa Republican caucuses a couple weeks later. So, Wolf, we're efforting more information here when we can talk to these officials and the campaign officials once they come out of their briefing.
We'll get back to you as soon as you have more information, Jeff. Thank you. Sean Sebastian is joining us right now from Story County. He's a precinct secretary out there. What can you tell us about this delay in getting any results, Sean?
Well, Wolf, I have been on hold for over an hour with the Iowa Democratic Party. They tried to, I think, promote an app to report the results. The app, by all accounts, just doesn't work. So we've been recommended to call into the hotline, and the hotline has not been responsive.
Have you gotten any explanation, Sean? Sean, have you gotten any explanation at all as to what's going on?
No, I have not. No. I'm just waiting on hold and doing my best to report the results from my precinct.
What are you hearing? I know you're listening to a conversation from the Iowa Democratic Party.
This is a real coincidence, Wolf. I just got off hold just now, so I've got to get off the phone to report the results.
All right, go ahead. Report your results. Can we listen in as you report them, Sean?
Yep.
All right,
cool.
let's listen.
All right. Okay, hi. Hello? They hung up on me. They hung up on me. Okay, I've got to get back in line on hold. They just hung up.
It's so frustrating indeed. Sean, we're going to stay in close touch with you. Sean Sebastian from Story County out in Iowa, a precinct secretary, just wanted to report the results of the caucus there, and clearly for an hour he was on hold, finally got through, and then all of a sudden not happening now. Story County, John King, I assume you know where all these 99 counties.
Story County is very important. It's Polk County's right here. This is where the state party headquarters is, so it's a pretty short phone call. But this is where the state party headquarters is. Polk's the largest county. Story County is very interesting because Ames, Iowa, it's a college town, so it's key if you go back in time and just take a look at it here. It was a Bernie Sanders county by quite a bit 4 years ago. So it's one of those places where we're trying to see where do the young people go, where do the progressives go. It's very important in the full calculation. It is stunning. We still have 99 counties in Iowa, all gray at the moment. Again, you're seeing these names here. They're all 0% because the computer stacks them alphabetically until we start to get results. All of these campaigns that are competing anyway, are sitting in their headquarters. I was just in the back texting and emailing. Ryan Nobles was first reported here. All of the campaigns have been asked to send a designee to the Iowa Democratic Party for a meeting. We're waiting to get some word on exactly what they're being told in that meeting. And of course, you just heard the precinct captain you were talking to. The campaigns are saying the same thing, that they're hearing issues with the technology. They're hearing issues about the delay, trying to get on the phone when they're trying to go do it the old-fashioned way. So we wait. And at the moment, we have nothing.
All right, let's take a quick break. Resume our special coverage from the Iowa caucuses. Still, 0% of the precincts have reported. We'll be right back.
Staff, give yourselves a hand, okay?
And you're looking at live pictures from Amy Klobuchar headquarters. That is not Amy Klobuchar, in case you're wondering. That is a person on her campaign. We expect her to be speaking very shortly to Governor McAuliffe's suggestion that a candidate should maybe come out and start speaking. Maybe somebody was listening. We're told she will be out momentarily. Governor, just again, this is for those who are just joining us. Normally, we would have the vast majority of results in more in 2016. By this hour, we would have had more than 90% of the results in. We have 0 results in. The Iowa Democratic Party says that they have 25% of results in thus far. What do you make of what is going on?
Now they've
what does
called
it
representatives of the campaign to the state party for a meeting. That is not a good sign. So obviously what we're hearing is there was a problem with the app sending the information in. I mean, you're only reporting a couple numbers. They should have had it back up with phones. You heard this gentleman could not get through. I mean, it's chaos.
If you're sitting in the White House tonight watching this, as I'm sure some people
Donald Trump is loving this.
This must be ideal.
God love the Democratic Party. I mean, this is what we have to fix. We have to look organized as a party. But this is the problem here with the caucuses. candidates, they want to give their victory speeches. They want to get on the planes. They're going to get into New Hampshire at 5 in the morning. This is their job to run these caucuses, and they can't do it.
Amy Klobuchar there. You can sort of see her through the signs. Not really. But she's about to speak.
Probably heard we don't know the results. But I did not want to let another minute go by without thanking all of you. We know there's delays, but we know one thing. We are punching above our weight. My heart is full tonight. One, because I have my great chair here. Thank you, Andy McGuire. Two, because I have this fantastic staff that has stood with us all the time. And three, because my husband and daughter are here with me tonight. And I want to thank them. I want to thank our tireless field organizers, the unstoppable volunteers who would never give up. And we are feeling so good tonight. And I cannot wait. Somehow, some way, I'm going to get on a plane tonight to New Hampshire. And we are bringing this ticket to New Hampshire. So even in a crowded field of candidates, even during the well-earned impeachment hearing of Donald J. Trump, which kept me bolted to my Senate desk for the last 2 weeks, we kept fighting. And you kept fighting for me. We have started in a blizzard, and a lot of people didn't predict I'd finish that speech. That's what they were like, how could she do it? Then in the summer, they kept saying, is she going to make it through the summer? And then debate after debate after debate. And all I can say is we are here and we are strong. And with that same grit that got us through that blizzard, we are now ready to head to New Hampshire. And my friends here in Iowa, you know we have beaten the odds every step of the way. We have done it on the merits, we have done it with ideas, and we have done it with hard work. Because, thank you. We know in our hearts that in a democracy, it is not about the loudest voice or the biggest bank account. It is about the best idea, and it is about the person that can turn those ideas into action. We know that our party can't win big by trying to outdivide the divider-in-chief. We know that we win by bringing people with us instead of shutting them out. Donald Trump's worst nightmare is that the people in the middle, the people who have had enough of the name-calling and the mudslinging, have a candidate to vote for in November. Donald Trump's worst nightmare is that our fired-up Democrats will march to victory alongside a big coalition of independents and moderate Republicans that see this election just as we do. That this election is, yes, an economic check, but it also is a patriotic check. It is a decency check. It is the simple idea, that the heart of America is so much bigger than the heart of this guy in the White House. Our country cannot take another 4 years of Donald Trump. Our collective sense of decency can't take another 4 years. The rule of law can't withstand another 4 years of a president that thinks he's above it. Our democracy cannot tolerate another 4 years of a president who wants to bulldoze right through it. The American dream cannot take another 4 years of a president who thinks he can choose who gets it. His playbook is not hard to understand. It is really 3 words: divide and demoralize. Well, I have a playbook that's 3 words: unite and lead. That is how I have passed over 100 bills as the lead Democrat in the United States Senate in the middle of that gridlock. And that is how I have won elections in the reddest of red congressional districts, in the bluest of blue congressional districts. The president, though, he might as well have a sign on his desk that says, "The buck stops anywhere but here." Look at what he has done. He blames everyone for our problems. He blames everyone, people that shouldn't be blamed. Who does he blame? He blames immigrants, right? He blames Barack Obama. He blames the Fed chair that he nominated, the energy secretary that he appointed, the generals that he commands, and yes, the King of Denmark. He even recently blamed Justin Trudeau for cutting him out of the Canadian version of Home Alone 2. Who does that? Who does that? So let me tell you what I will do. When I am behind that desk, I will take responsibility instead of passing it on. I will reach across the aisle and work with Americans in good faith. Instead of picking fights, I'll bring this country together instead of pushing it apart. Some of you may know that old story about Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And it was a story about how after he died, they put his body on a train and it worked its way to Washington, D.C. And there's a story of a reporter who came upon a man who was crying by the side of those tracks. And the man had his hat on his chest and he was sobbing. And the reporter looked at him and said, "Sir, do you know President Roosevelt? Did you know him?" And the man says, "No, I didn't know President Roosevelt, but he knew me. He knew me." And what we are missing so much right now in our country is that sense of empathy. We are missing that caring. And I promise you this, I will bring back that sacred trust between the American people and the President of the United States. If you are sick and tired of hearing how great the economy is when you don't feel it, when your paycheck is stretched to the breaking point month after month, I know you, and I will fight for you. If you are sick of choosing between paying for daycare for your kids and long-term care for your parents, I know you, and I will fight for you. If you're sick of being torn between filling a refrigerator and filling a prescription, I know you, and I will fight for you. And if you want a Democratic nominee who can make our tent bigger and our coalition wider and our coattails longer, if you want that, I know you, and I will fight for you. And if you are sick and tired of the extremes in our politics and the noise and the nonsense, you have a home with me. So please join our campaign at amyklobuchar.com. Join us.
Amy Klobuchar speaking first out. She just spoke. Even though we're waiting for some results, so far 0% of the precincts reporting. You're getting some new information on this delay hour after hour.
I am, as well as David Shine is. The telephone call has ended between the Iowa Democratic Party and the representatives of the campaigns. What we're told, though, is what they are saying publicly is what they were saying privately, that, in fact, this is out of the abundance of caution that they are having to report 3 data sets, and they want to make sure they get it right. Now, I know David has even more.
Well, we just have a brand new statement, everyone, from the Iowa Democratic Party. This is from the communications director, Mandy McClure. Wolf, I'm just going to read this from my computer screen here. We found inconsistencies in the reporting of 3 sets of results. In addition to the text systems being used to tabulate results, we are also using photos of results and a paper trail to validate that all results match and ensure that we have confidence and accuracy in the numbers we report. This is simply a reporting issue. The app did not go down, and this is not a hack or an intrusion. The underlying data and paper trail is sound and will simply take time to further report the results. So that is from the Iowa Democratic Party Communications Director. We are now finally, after several hours now, actually getting what the system is, which is that the text systems used to tabulate the results, in addition to photos and paper trail, will now validate because of inconsistencies in reporting of the 3 sets of results.
And tell our viewers what the 3 sets we're talking about.
Well, remember, this is something brand new. This has never happened before, and obviously this has caused a complication here, but we were getting tonight, anticipating from the Iowa Democratic Party, a popular vote total of that first round of voting that voters, the caucus goers, do when they get to the caucuses, and then a popular vote total of the final round of voting after they have realigned themselves and certain candidates are not viable, and then the all-important metric of state delegate equivalents that determine the winner of the Iowa caucuses. 3 different data streams that the party had prepared to transmit simultaneously as it was being reported in from the precincts, and report out first, final, and state delegates all at once. But again, quote, we found inconsistencies in the reporting of 3 sets of results. So something wasn't matching up and making sense, it seems, between that first vote, final vote, and those state
Sounds like a technical problem. They're going to have to go back and actually count the...
And they want to ensure it's accurate, the reporting.
And you know what? You have to give them credit for that. I mean, in the sense, if this is in fact what is happening and that they have these safeguards in place, then we're all just going to have to wait a little bit to get those results. Again, they probably should have came out about an hour earlier to probably tamp this down, but we'll see what these results are when they come out.
We've got Brett Niles is joining us, the Lynn County Democratic Party chair, joining us on the phone right now. Brett, can you help us better appreciate this delay? What's going on?
Unfortunately, we're having trouble with people who weren't able to get through on the app, that it was getting hung up, or they weren't able to initially get in, that are trying to call in the results on the line that was identified for filing results if the app wasn't working.
So where does it stand right now? What do you have to do?
We're trying to gather all the information from the various 86 precincts in Lynn County. We have a central location for that. So we're going to be getting as much information from each one of those so we can try and compile it here, if possible, for Lynn County results.
Do you have a sense of the results in Lynn County where you are?
No, unfortunately, I don't right now. There's still people coming in, and we're unpacking our presidential preference cards, our reporting sheets, our voter registrations, and so forth. So to that extent, I really don't have a handle on where it stands.
Brett, we'll stay in touch with you. The former Vice President, Joe Biden, is getting ready to make a statement, too. You see his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, there as well. We want to hear what he has to say in Iowa.
It's going to be a long night, but I'm feeling good. I want to thank you all our supporters, and all those incredible people who hold public office in this state that endorsed us, and all the endorsers from all across the country, my colleagues in the Senate, in the House, and from the Vice Presidency, all of you, and all the people from Delaware, California, all the people came from all over to campaign here. I want to tell you. And most of all, I want to thank the Iowans that are here. Well, the Iowa Democratic Party is working to get this result, get them straight. And I want to make sure they're very careful in their deliberations. And indications are, from our indications, it's going to be close. We're going to walk out of here with our share of delegates. We don't know exactly what it is yet, but we feel good about where we are. And look, so it's on to New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, and well beyond. We're in this for the long haul. And I want us to remember, not just tonight, but throughout this campaign, this isn't thank you. This isn't just another election. This is well beyond our party. This is about ending an era of, ending an era, God willing, of a president who, look, this is bigger than any of us. It really is. We cannot allow Donald Trump to be reelected to the United States presidency again. I'm ready to give him a new nickname. The former President Trump, Chris. The former President Trump. And folks, as I said, it's bigger than any candidate, bigger than any party. And folks, you know, I said from the outset, Jill and I both said, we're in a battle for the soul of the nation. And that's not hyperbole. We really believe that, and I think it's been demonstrated every single hour he remains as President of the United States. Folks, each and every one of us knows that deep in our bones that everything this nation stands for is at stake. And I really mean it. 4 more years of Donald Trump will fundamentally alter the character of this nation. And character is on the ballot. That's what this is. Everything that makes America, America is at stake, and literally our democracy is at stake, in my view, our view. I say our view because you've been doing as hard as I have. Folks, and folks, I love her too, man. Well, I tell you what, and the other reason we're running and we're gonna make sure it happens is we've got to rebuild the backbone of this country. The working class, the middle class, they've been getting laid out badly by this administration. The middle class is being hurt very badly. But look, you know what? We have to unify this country as well. Everybody understands that CEOs and Wall Street bankers didn't build America. Ordinary, hardworking people led by unions built America. Unions. And folks, we need a president who's not only ready to fight, but is also ready to heal this country. We can't hold grudges. We've got to be able to go out and unify the country because the president is supposed to heal as well as fight. And that's exactly what I plan on doing, we plan on doing, all of us in this hall plan on doing. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, I'm going to go all over this country, every part of the Democratic Party, and reunite it. Men, women, gay, straight, everyone, black, brown, a whole universe of people out there. Because folks, there's nothing we've ever failed at when we've tried to do it together. Nothing America's ever failed at. And so, ladies and gentlemen, all my friends, and by the way, I want to take a special thanks again to Al Shapeberg and the firefighters. You've been incredible to us. You've been incredible to us. But folks, everybody knows who Donald Trump is. Well, it's fortunate they do know now. They didn't know last time, I don't think. But they know now. And folks, we got to let them know who we are. We choose hope over fear. We choose science over fiction. Unity over division. And compassion over cruelty. And maybe most importantly of all, truth over lies. Folks, we're going to do this. I promise you. I promise you we're going to get this done. And God willing, we'll do it together. May God bless you all and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. On to New Hampshire.
Came together and fought side by side until we won our independence. In the 1800s, people said that slavery would endure forever and African Americans would never see liberation. But abolitionists, enslaved and formerly enslaved people formed an underground railroad, and more than 2 million people waged a war to defeat the tyranny of slavery. And in the 1900s, people said we could never rescue our economy from the depths of the Great Depression or defeat fascism. But we forged a new deal. We mobilized to defeat fascism. We expanded unions. We built a middle class, and we marched for civil rights. Americans do big things. That's who we are. We don't settle. We don't back down. We meet big problems with even bigger solutions. So I'm here tonight because I believe that big dreams are still possible in America. Tonight, you showed that when you imagine an America that lives up to its ideals, you can set in motion the process of making it a reality. All it takes is some hard work and better connections. And here in Iowa, that's what happened. You came together, you organized, you showed that we are united in our conviction.
Senator Elizabeth Warren there. If you're listening for a victory speech, you're not hearing anybody give a victory speech because nobody has any, there have been no results released publicly, given this issue with all the data that has been coming in ordinary years. In 2016, for instance, by 11:40 on the East Coast time, I'm just checking from the records back then, we would have had about 90, almost 95% of the votes already announced. Governor McAuliffe, David Axelrod, Governor McAuliffe earlier was suggesting that candidates should get out there at least, and Amy Klobuchar was the first.
Well,
to
here's
do it
what
very
we're
wisely.
learning, that when there are no results, everybody goes home a winner. They're all giving victory speeches. And in certain ways, it lets candidates off the hook who would have had to give a much more sober speech tonight if all the results had come in.
Everybody's going on to New Hampshire. Everybody's...
Yeah, we'll see. You know, New Hampshire always want to be first in the nation. These results may come in so late that New Hampshire will be first in the nation.
I feel like we're in a rain delay of some kind, you know, a political rain delay here, and we're listening to all these candidates, and the one thing they're not talking about is why this happened. And every 4 years, we seem to be talking about some kind of problems.
And we just explain, was it, David, I don't know if you have the email or Gloria, you have it. Just explain
I've got a more
what we
extensive,
have now been told about.
So here's a more extensive one. We found inconsistencies in the reporting of all three sets of results. In addition to the text systems being used to tabulate results, we were also using photos of results and a paper trail to validate that all results match and ensure that we have confidence and accuracy in the numbers we report. This is simply a reporting issue. The app did not go down, and this is not a hack or an intrusion. The underlying data and paper trail is sound and will simply take time to further report the results. But it's not clear how much time it will take.
Precinct captains are saying, however, that they couldn't get through on the app.
Senator Santorum, you know well what it's like to wait and wait and wait. Talk about it.
Well, no, look, I've talked to some friends in Iowa tonight, and I think the experience of 2012 has resulted in them having an extra sense of caution to make sure, particularly when it looks like a very close race here, that they don't get it wrong and then have to backtrack. That's the worst. I mean, making everybody wait an hour or two, it's not great for the candidates. It's not great for pundits and everybody. But they don't want to get it wrong. They don't want to misreport.
Can you just remind people what happened?
Well, I can remind you very well. In 2012, the results were off. Several precincts misreported. They had duplicate numbers or things. It's a manual system, and they reported that Romney won on caucus night by 8 votes. When they went back and checked everything, I won by 34. So. Mitt Romney got the win. Everyone says I won the Iowa caucuses, but in reality, the winner is the person who wins tonight. Yeah. Because there were 2 elections that were held before I was declared the winner, and so I got the advantage of winning the Iowa caucuses. Really didn't matter at that point.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, Rick, about whether it matters, first, second, third, if it's close, but it does matter.
Oh.
It does matter. And you're a living example.
And particularly with Bernie Sanders. I mean, it could be a very similar situation with me. And I don't know, Buttigieg and Sanders may be very close here, at least. I thought, heck, I lost by 8 votes. I mean, I was at 8%, 2 weeks before the caucus. I thought that would be the story. Within 12 hours, the election was over because Romney won Iowa. was going to win New Hampshire, game, set, match. Yeah, Santorum may have come close. I actually, within 24 hours, I wasn't even in the story anymore.
So what happens if nobody wins tonight?
Well, they're going to report a tally. I mean, look, they're just using everything I'm hearing. I mean, they're using an abundance of caution to make sure if it is a close race, if it's a few hundred votes or even, less than that, that they're not going to have to backtrack.
What's the cost? I mean, Governor, what's the cost of this for all these candidates? I mean, they've missed, obviously, papers reporting for the first thing in the morning, maybe when people...
They would all have emails out today declaring victory. They would be huge victory speech. They'd raise a lot of money. They'd be en route on a private plane to New Hampshire. Tremendous enthusiasm when you land. You had a huge rally when you get going as soon as you get to New Hampshire. That's all in jeopardy right now.
Well, several candidates are catching an enormous break.
Yes,
that's the other thing.
Yes. It's a win or lose.
Yeah, and they're getting away with it.
Yes.
And the shame of it is that some candidate or maybe candidates are being denied the big victory that the governor just referenced. The early data didn't suggest that Amy Klobuchar was headed to victory. But boy, you look tonight at the way she came out and spoke. She got a benefit.
And do these campaigns have a sense of how they've done?
Sure.
Bernie Sanders is coming out, so we're obviously going to take him when he speaks. But as he's just greeting the crowd, they have an
Absolutely.
idea.
They're getting reports from their own precinct captains. They have a good sense of where they are.
Do we meet our targets? Do we not meet our targets, et cetera? So they have a pretty good sense of how they're doing. Absolutely.
All right, let's listen to Bernie Sanders.
And let me begin by stating that I have a strong feeling that at some point the results will be announced. And when those results are announced, I have a good feeling we're going to be doing very, very well here in Iowa. And the message that Iowa has sent to the nation, the message shared by the American people, is that we want a government that represents all of us, not just wealthy campaign contributors and the 1%. Tonight, in this enormously consequential 2020 election, the first state in the country has voted, and today marks the beginning of the end for Donald Trump. The most dangerous president in modern American history. You know, no matter what our political views may be, the people of America understand we cannot continue to have a president who is a pathological liar, who is corrupt, who does not understand our Constitution, and is trying to divide our people up based on the color of their skin, based on their religion, their sexual orientation, or where they were born. And all of that hatred, all of that divisiveness is going to end when together we are in the White House. We are going to win this election because the people of the United States are sick and tired of a massive level of income and wealth inequality. They don't want tax breaks for billionaires and cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. The American people understand that if you work 40 hours a week, you should not live in poverty, and that we've got to raise that minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. The American people understand that health care is a human right, not a privilege. And that our administration is going to take on the greed and corruption of the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical industry. And whether they like it or not, we will pass a Medicare for all single-pay program. The American people understand that in the year 2020, all of our people, regardless of income, are entitled to get a higher education. And that is why, together, we will make public colleges and universities tuition-free, and why we will cancel all student debt in America. And we're going to do that through a modest tax on Wall Street speculation. 11 years ago, we bailed out the crooks on Wall Street. Now it is their time to help the middle class. And unlike the President of the United States, the American people understand that climate change is not a hoax, but is an existential threat to our country and the entire world. They understand that the time is now for us to take on the fossil fuel industry, to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energies. And as President of the United States, because this is a global issue, not just an American issue, we are going to speak to the people in China and Russia and countries all over this world and say, maybe, just maybe, instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe we should pool our resources and fight our common enemy, which is climate change. And the people of America know the time is long overdue for major reforms to a broken and racist criminal justice system. We're going to invest in our young people, in jobs and education, not more jails and incarceration. And the American people also understand that our immigration system is broken, and together we will pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. And the American people know that gun safety legislation will be written by the American people, not the NRA. And the American people most certainly know that it is women who must control their own bodies, not politicians. So, brothers and sisters, yes, together we will defeat Donald Trump, but we're going to do more than that. Our message to Wall Street and the insurance companies and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry and the military-industrial complex and the prison-industrial complex, our message to them is change is coming.
All right, we're going to cut away and talk more about the breaking news story here in Des Moines and across Iowa with this Iowa caucus mess. Dana Bash, the Iowa Democratic Party just called all of the campaigns and gave an update as to why this significant delay in any results or returns. It's never happened like this before. What did they tell the campaigns?
Well, I'm told that it was a short call, not that informative, that the Iowa party basically told them what David Chalian read, the statement that they released to the press. They didn't take any questions. It was very quick. I talked to one of the campaigns, a source in one of the campaigns, who said that they kind of hung up quickly so that they could avoid taking questions. That was the feeling from this source. But the other thing that one thing that they did say is that there's going to be counting manually.
Manually counting all the ballots.
But well, that's a question, because they didn't answer questions, is what does that exactly mean? Because when you're talking about caucuses, how does that work? We don't know the answer to that. Just put that on the long list of questions.
Hundreds of thousands of votes, or is it from the 1,700 or so precincts?
Exactly.
Because remember, there's 3 sets of data for this caucus count. Not just the delegates, but also the popular vote and more.
Right, and let me just add one thing.
Yeah.
One thing that they could be doing, and this is a suggestion by one of the campaigns, is, and I think you can actually add to this, Jeff, is that at the end of the caucus, each caucus, they tally everything, all of the data points. And what I'm told is that people are being asked to take photos of that and sending it, calling that in.
And we know that the campaigns are even more annoyed than you at home are probably, because obviously they and their volunteers and staffers have worked literally for years in many cases on this very night to get these results. Jeff Zeleny, the campaign of Vice President Biden has written a letter, a rather pointed one, to the Democratic Party. What does it say?
It is pointed, and this is coming from their lawyers. This was coming just before that phone call, but they're calling out a systematic failure, they believe, in this. And they said, look, we invested all this time and money into this system. So they said, however, we believe the campaigns deserve a full explanation and relevant information regarding the methods of quality control you're employing and an opportunity to respond before the official results are released. That is key. They are questioning the results, and that is a much bigger problem. If it's not just simply hand counting, we'll see some campaigns who perhaps didn't do as well as others. Will they be questioning these results? So we have not yet heard from the Iowa Democratic Party officials. Questions are mounting, and their silence is deafening, I would say, at this point.
And one of the other things going on right now, of course, is the Trump campaign and Republicans are trying to exploit this opportunity and sow seeds of doubt, suggesting that perhaps there's some sort of conspiracy going on here. The Trump campaign's campaign manager, Brad Parscale, asking on Twitter, is this rigged, et cetera. We have, obviously, there's no evidence of anything like this other than tremendous systematic incompetence. We're going to squeeze in a quick break. We're going to come right back with the breaking news from Des Moines. Stay with us.
All right, 0% of the precincts have reported so far, even though the polls, the caucuses closed, 4 hours ago. No results at all from the Iowa caucus is a huge, huge embarrassment for the Iowa Democratic Party. The deputy campaign manager, communications director for the Joe Biden campaign, Kate Bedingfield, just issuing a statement. The integrity of the process is critical, and there were flaws in the reporting systems tonight that should raise serious concerns for voters. John King and David Chalian, you're speaking to your sources as well. This is an awkward moment for the Democrats in Iowa.
It is opening night of what the Democrats need to be, for them, a successful campaign, no matter who the nominee is. Their goal is to try to beat an incumbent president of the United States who has a very strong economy. This was the starting gate, and they're having a problem right out of the starting gate. Kate Bedingfield, a senior Biden aide, questioning the integrity of the process. Imagine that. We don't have any results. It's midnight now in the East, 11 o'clock in Iowa. All of the campaigns are livid. As you touch base with all of the campaigns, nobody's happy. They say they had a phone call with Iowa Democratic Party officials and that was abruptly ended. Some campaigns are calling it they hung up on us when they started to ask questions. When will we get the results? Explain the process to us. I'm told by sources in 2 different campaigns that at that time of that call, which was a little more than an hour ago, they had 0 verified results. And about 35% of the vote counted, but it hadn't been double-checked and verified yet. And one person in one of the campaigns said the impression, I want to stress impression, was that this might not be done until the morning.
4 years ago, but at this point, about 95, 98% of the precincts have already reported. Right now, 0%.
Right. And as the Iowa Democratic Party has said, they think it's due to inconsistencies in the 3 different streams of data they were going to report tonight: the first vote, the final vote, the state delegates. And they're seeing those inconsistencies is what now has them going through this much more laborious process of trying to find verified ways. That's what was so important what John said. I had a campaign source on the call as well that said nothing was verified data from any precinct at the time of this call, which ended at 35 minutes ago or so. And so what you have here, the other thing on that call that I heard from a source is that the campaigns weren't getting anything that wasn't being put out publicly. Right. They were not getting any more detailed information behind closed doors with fellow Democrats in the party. And no, it was, this is the issue that we're stating publicly. So they have no more real insight into the what actually broke down here and how, as Kate Bedingfield in the Biden campaign is raising, how the party is now going to verify these results in a way that is totally believed by the voters, by the campaigns. Because Wolf, some of these campaigns, especially if the results are not to their liking, are going to now wonder aloud if indeed the results ever can be trusted.
This is about the time, maybe even a little earlier, on Iowa caucus night, especially with a crowded field, where the conversations we're having and the conversations we're having with senior officials in the campaign, with 1 or 2 of those campaigns, is can you survive? How are you going to be able to raise money after this? How can you go on? What you have now is all the donors around the country saying, well, what do we do tomorrow? All of the candidates giving the "we think we did well" speeches and going on to New Hampshire. So the traditional Iowa bounce or Iowa struggle, we won't be able to assess that now. We will get it eventually, and we'll go through it. But to David's point, somebody who comes in 4th or 5th is going to question the integrity of the process. They're going to try to suggest that maybe we shouldn't believe those results. That's not good for the Democratic Party out of the gate. And I just want to say one more thing. It's not just the campaigns that are mad. If you have been in touch with county chairs across the state over the last several months, remember, Iowa initially planned to have a so-called virtual caucus where people could participate electronically or at remote sites, and they finally canceled that because they realized it was simply undemocratic. Number one, they weren't going to give it much of the percentage of the vote, and they were having
DNC.
Right.
Voted that they couldn't do it because they were concerned.
And so some of the county chairs have complained consistently that every time they've asked for information, every time they've tried to just be reassured from the state party that they were ready for this, a great number of them in rural counties and in larger counties have been frustrated for months. And tonight we get this.
Yeah, these candidates have spent millions of dollars campaigning in Iowa. They were hoping to get some results. So far, they've gotten nothing at all. It's pretty shocking, I must say. Anderson, over to you.
Yeah, Wolf, we're here with the panel. Governor, I mean, to Wolf's point, these candidates have spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money. Can we trust anything coming out of Iowa now?
You're furious. You've spent a year campaigning. You've missed your best opportunities. And I think if you watch the speeches tonight, you just got to think Pete's about to come out. But, I mean, you just get the feeling he probably had a very good night tonight. So I bet he and Sanders are very close, would be my guesstimate. Then it's probably Warren and Biden underneath that if you watch the speeches here tonight. But, it's very unfortunate for the time and effort because the banner headlines the next day, Bloom wins Iowa.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you.
Well, and if you were a Pete Buttigieg who bet everything on doing well in Iowa, I mean, he has really been victimized here tonight. Sanders may make his mark, but he had the wherewithal to move on here. Buttigieg now has to make the case tomorrow if these numbers come out and show that he has to get the benefit that he didn't get tonight.
And the converse of that is that Biden probably got a lifeline tonight.
Yeah.
I think Iowa was throwing him a big anvil, and because we don't know what happened, he got to turn that into a lifeline and give a speech and walk off.
Which is what this letter is.
Well, now he's challenging the legitimacy of these results. And he is saying, we need an opportunity to respond to your methods, et cetera, before any official results are released. This could have all been taken care of in a better way if there had been some transparency on the part of the Democratic Party earlier in the evening to tell people what was going on.
Michael Smirkovich?
I was going to say a cynical interpretation of that letter is to say we want those results kept in the vault, right?
Well,
we don't want them ever to see the light of day until maybe never.
Well, Pete, let me just say that I think Pete Buttigieg, where are you? I have no idea why he's not out there talking right now. It makes absolutely no sense.
Just wait a few minutes.
I mean, no, he should have been out there. I mean, it's midnight East Coast. I mean, he should have been out there a half an hour ago, maybe even an hour ago, and he should be declaring victory. I mean, if he's got numbers that show he's close, I'd be out there saying, I'm going to win. Okay, Pete, thanks for listening.
I hope that didn't become
I won Iowa.
Santorum, you're more influential in
He's actually not there.
I also want to add that there were stories 10 days to 2 weeks ago about the Iowa Caucus app and how it was sparking election security concerns. And at that point, Troy Price, the Iowa Democratic Party chairman, said that there were safeguards in this app and said, if there is a challenge, we'll be ready with a backup and a backup to that backup and a backup to the backup to the backup.
Yeah, he needs to back up because that didn't happen.
I have no doubt that they'll be able to validate every number and that all this Biden stuff is posturing because he didn't do well tonight.
Right.
But
right, at that point doesn't matter.
That point,
to your
point
look, earlier.
There people are getting, Pete Buttigieg is getting hurt tonight.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no question about it.
All the millions of dollars spent in Iowa. Iowa, the crown jewel of this process. You get to go first. We're going to spend all this money on air. We're going to have all these volunteers.
Like half your
and don't forget the party makes a fortune as well.
Exactly.
Their big state dinner. Yeah. They sell the voter file, the voter list to everybody. They make millions.
So does Iowa go first next time in 4 years?
No.
No,
listen, I will say this should be the end of this nonsense with Iowa.
Or caucuses.
And caucuses in general. Listen, it doesn't make any sense. Where is the payoff for anybody in this party? If you're a young person who believes in this thing and got involved, where's the payoff for you? If you're African American, you have states where we're better represented. We're nowhere in Iowa. Where's the payoff for you? Where's the payoff for all the blood, sweat, and tears? I don't know what percentage of the GDP for Iowa this is, but where's the payoff for us? I don't see it.
What if we spent this much time and energy and resources in our best organizers and sent our best staffers to states that we knew were going to be a really big deal in the general election? Wouldn't that be a better use of resources?
No, I look, as someone who, I'll defend the Iowa caucus, even though it didn't necessarily do right by me in some respects. Having a state that individual candidates who is not the most well-funded candidate, having an opportunity to go out there, connect with voters, not buy an election, that's an important part of our democracy. And if we just go to regional primaries or California primaries, then it's whoever raises the most money wins, or whoever has $50 billion is going to win. Iowa, New Hampshire give the opportunity for candidates to actually sell themselves against people who actually pay attention.
I've always defended the caucuses in the early states for that reason. There is an argument that you rotate that to get the same effect, that it doesn't have to be the province of one state.
Which Democrats need.
The question is whether other states would take it as seriously as Iowa and New Hampshire do. And maybe they would.
How seriously Iowa is taking it.
That's not fair. These voters are pretty...
Yeah, they're serious
voters. I think that, let's make a distinction out of fairness. I think your point is well raised. The people worked their butts off. You have people who voted or who participated who had they literally talked to every single candidate, sometimes multiple times.
Yeah, they did.
So I do think the people there are taking it seriously, but something is off. Something is wrong. And I do believe that if you had another state that was more diverse and more representative, and you had a year and a half of runway, and people spending that much money and time, people would take it seriously. Well, I just think that something is wrong tonight.
But the fact of the matter is, less than 10% of the eligible people actually vote. I'm sorry, Rick, I disagree. Give me a primary state where Democrats vote in a primary, and you make it 65 or 70%. They take it very seriously.
Yes.
Don't tell me a voter who works in a campaign and goes votes in a primary is not taking it serious. Only 10% come out and vote. I'm sorry. I'd rather go to a Democratic state where people come out, they vote, and they do it in big numbers.
Yeah,
and that's why
I'm influenced by the experience that I had because I worked for an African American candidate, came to Iowa, was not a favorite candidate, and he won the caucuses, and it vaulted him forward to the presidency. So. And the turnout was very large and enthusiastic. You know, one of the reasons why I think transparency is a great thing, and we need it. But you know, the party was trying to respond to
the petitioning of the Sanders
Ask her to do
campaign
more than
to
they were really
include
capable of
lots of
doing.
different
That's the
data here,
issue.
so there would be different marks for victory. And they got out over their skis and trying to accommodate all of
But
this.
how difficult, let's just end with this. How difficult is it to build an app that you've had a year to prepare for to deal with these three numbers that you're going to hand? I'm sorry. Apps are developed every single day with much more difficult algorithms than that.
It sounds, Governor, like there wasn't a backup system for old school telephone calling.
Right.
Yeah.
If the app failed,
And
they
nobody-
probably didn't have sufficient operators, you know, the old snow chain,
Well,
to
and-
call off school so that people could phone in the results.
And if you don't know how to use the app or you're not proficient, it can be difficult. And then you try and make the phone call when it doesn't work, and then there's a backup on the phone lines. As
We are
were
electing the
hearing.
president
Yeah,
of the
you know,
United
you
States
do
of
have-
America.
You do have 4 years to prepare for it. And I understand they were trying to be more transparent here. And no good deed goes unpunished. You're trying to provide more information for voters. I get that. Except you ought to know how to do it. And when it messes up, you ought to tell people what's going on.
Yeah, you know, like
Particularly
if I were
these
chairman of the
days.
Democratic National
the
Committee,
issue. Yeah.
I would be. Oh wait, you were chairman of the Democratic.
Right.
This didn't happen when I was chair.
But would you have come out and said something?
Yeah, let's take a
Someone
break.
should be out there.
Let's take a break.
Yeah, I
We'll
agree
be
with
right
that.
back. More ahead.
Someone from the party.
Well, I don't know whether.
A very deep intellect and experience.
Instead of complaining.
Well, after midnight here on the East Coast, 11:16 p.m. In the Central Time Zone in Des Moines. That's Pete Buttigieg headquarters. We're waiting to hear from the Democratic presidential candidate. Already we heard from maybe Klobuchar, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders. There's a huge problem. The Iowa Democratic Party, John King, David Chalian, announced we found inconsistencies in the reporting of 3 sets of results. Normally at this time, 4.5 hours or whatever, after the Iowa caucuses begin, we'd have 95, 98% of the precincts reporting. Right now, we have 0% of the precincts reporting.
We have 0 because they had a problem that then just turned into a domino effect that created more problems, more problems, more problems. We'll get the full story as we get through this. We're not getting much information out of the party right now because they're sort of in the bunker. A couple of statements about inconsistencies, and yes, and smartly, that the quality and integrity of the results is what matters most. And so if we have to wait for them, we have to wait for them. The party says it is confident it has the paper trail so that it will take its time and go through this. So again, in the end, but the campaigns are livid. The campaigns are raising questions about the integrity of it. And the campaigns are saying, and the state party has confirmed some of this, that from early in the day, there were problems with this new app they had. Then there were problems calling into the backup hotline system. And then there just was communication problems all around the line. So we're waiting now. And as you say, it's 12:17 a.m. It is now Tuesday here in the East. It's 11 o'clock hour in Iowa. Pete Buttigieg just finally speaking, someone who thought he might have a strong performance tonight, someone who needs a strong performance tonight, someone who wanted to come out early and give a speech. We don't know the results. He doesn't know the results. They have some anecdotal information, and they actually, more than that, some math from their people around the state, but they can't trust that either.
MJ Lee is joining us from the Warren headquarters. You got some new reporting over there, MJ. What are you learning?
That's right, Wolf. We obviously just saw Senator Warren give remarks here at her election night party, and she is now taking photos with supporters. Even though the mood was celebratory, her aides are raising some concerns about what they heard about what went on tonight at some of these caucus sites. What they're telling me is that at some of these caucus sites, there were issues that their people were seeing, and that their hotline was blowing up tonight because they were getting reports that during the second alignment, precinct caucus chairs were making mistakes by not properly understanding the rules or counting properly. In multiple precincts, they were told that caucus chairs did not know how to actually calculate the final math, including pertaining to the rule that allows people to leave after the first alignment. There were instances of only counting the total as the people who remained in the room rather than counting the total people that were first in the room at the caucus site. So again, even though the mood here is celebratory and Senator Warren tried to show up for these supporters who have been eagerly waiting for her, sort of behind the scenes, we are getting another sign that there is concern, at least within the Warren campaign, of some of the reports that they heard. And this is what they say about their hotline, again, blowing up with concerns about rules not being properly followed and the counting not being done properly either. Wolf.
It's so awkward, so embarrassing. All right, MJ, thank you very much. David Chalian, it's so unfair to the candidates and their supporters. Everybody was looking forward to seeing who's going to get a little bit of momentum from the Iowa caucuses, and all of a sudden, 0%.
Yeah, I mean, it's most unfair to the voters, the caucus goers who went out today, who now have a question mark hanging over this process. But it's surprising. That was fascinating reporting from MJ that the Warren campaign was concerned about some of the math that they saw, because that's actually not new this cycle. So if you're an experienced caucus chair in Iowa, you know the formula and how what they call caucus math works. You have to get that full count in the room of who's there initially. You know how many delegates are available for your caucus site. And there's a formula that they plug in and do, and that formula didn't change this cycle. So the fact that there might have been some problem doing the math is yet another wrinkle now, but not a new one, not like the app and that they were going to publicly report out different streams of information. That's actually the traditional way of running these caucuses.
You know, John, you and I should be at the magic wall right now. You should be showing where Biden did well, where he did poorly, what about Pete Buttigieg. All of that we should be going through as we normally do, and instead we got nothing.
Instead we have 99 counties of gray.
Let's listen to Pete Buttigieg. He's walking into his rally right now. He doesn't know how he did tonight. We don't know how any of the candidates did tonight, because a serious flaw that developed. The Iowa Democratic Party itself said we found inconsistencies in the reporting of 3 sets of results. In addition to the tech system being used, there were several other problems as well. We want to hear what Pete Buttigieg has to say tonight. He's getting ready to speak. You know what? Let's listen in.
Thank you. Thank you, Iowa. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What a night. Because tonight, an improbable hope became an undeniable reality. So we don't know all the results. But we know by the time it's all said and done, Iowa, you have shocked the nation. Because by all indications, we are going on to New Hampshire victorious. You know, 1 year ago, it was in the deep freeze of an Iowa January where we began this unlikely journey to win the American presidency. We weren't well known, but we had a new idea. The idea that at this moment when Washington has never felt further from our everyday lives, a middle-class mayor from the American Midwest could carry the voices of the American people all the way to the American Capitol and make sure they're actually heard. We had the belief that in the face of exhaustion and cynicism and division, in spite of every trampled norm and every poisonous tweet, that a rising majority of Americans was hungry for action and ready for new answers. We can see an American majority yearning for leadership to rally us together behind bold ideas to make a difference in our lives. We saw that Americans were ready to come together, but our politics were not. And to seize this moment, we needed a new path forward, a path that welcomed people instead of pushing them away, brought them together instead of driving them apart, because this is our best and maybe our last shot. We knew that with this American majority, we are on the cusp of changing the game for ordinary Americans, but that we could not win or govern if we wrote people off who didn't agree with us 100% of the time. But that if we could come together, the future that we know is possible would start on January 21st, 2021. An awful lot of skeptics who said, not now, not this time. All this talk of belonging and of bridging divides is too naive, too risky. So tonight I say with a heart full of gratitude, Iowa, you have proved those skeptics wrong. And it was by your effort we brought together an extraordinary coalition of Americans, progressives, moderates, and that good number of what we like to call future former Republicans. And that's how we're going to win in November. Because it's about adding people to our cause, adding to our majority. That is how we will guarantee that on the day Donald Trump leaves office, we'll be ready to move America forward into the era that must come next. I want to thank every member of our campaign family, every organizer, every volunteer, every caucus goer who talked to a neighbor or a coworker, every staff member and every supporter who believed. And anyone who shares our vision can join the 750,000 grassroots supporters fueling our movement and chip in right now at PeteForAmerica.com. And while we're at it, I want to recognize a few other people who helped us get to this night. My mother, who not only helped raise me, but put her love of language to work answering letters sent to our campaign. My father, who left us just in the very early days of this journey, but whose own journey to this country made tonight possible in the first place. And to the love of my life, keeping my feet on the ground. How about a hand for the future First Gentleman of the United States? Let's hear it for Chester. I also want to congratulate my fellow Democratic competitors in this diverse and formidable field. For months, we have been having an honest and respectful but vigorous debate about the course of our party and the future of this nation. And tonight, Iowa chose a new path. From river to river, in churches and community centers and high school gyms, you joined your neighbors to say that the time has come to turn the page and open up a new chapter in the American story. You chose to move on not just from the broken policies of these last few years, but the broken politics that got us here. And tomorrow, because of what we did here, the nation will have that choice too. We take our message onward to New Hampshire, which has a way of making up its own mind, to Nevada, to South Carolina, and beyond to every corner of America. And as we do, we will be building the movement that not only will win the election against Donald Trump, but win the era for our shared values. We have exactly one shot to defeat Donald Trump. And we're not going to do it by overreaching. We're not going to do it by division. We're not going to do it by saying it's my way or the highway. This is our shot, our only shot to galvanize an American majority to win. And make no mistake, ours is the campaign that will defeat this president. A president who cuts taxes for corporations while crushing the rights of workers to organize ought to have to compete with a middle-class mayor who entered politics fighting for auto workers and actually lives and works in the industrial Midwest. A president who tries to cloak himself and his wrongdoing in religion should have to debate a candidate not afraid to remind America that God does not belong to a political party. And a president who avoided serving when it was his turn should have to stand next to a veteran ready to show what troops deserve from a real commander-in-chief. Now, this president may get a pass on the floor of the Senate, but this November, the verdict will be up to us. And when I'm your nominee, we will win big enough to send not just Donald Trump's presidency, but Trumpism itself into the dustbin of history where it belongs. Something is stirring in America right now. You can feel it. We saw it tonight. in the bluest counties and the reddest, in rural towns and industrial cities, in big communities and small, and the suburbs in between. We're seeing Democrats hungry to win, independent voters who had been turned off by our politics, Republicans tired of trying to look their kids in the eye and explain this presidency, all standing together. And all standing together to declare that we are defined not by who we voted for in the past, but by what we're voting for in the future. This is the coalition that no pundit saw coming. And it's the coalition the president won't see coming either. It's a majority we're assembling to agree not just on who we're against, but on what we are for. We are unifying a rising American majority ready to raise wages and empower workers in this fast-changing economy. A majority ready and determined to put an end to endless war. A majority committed to bringing about a day in America where your race has no bearing on your health, your wealth, your access to education, or your relationship with law enforcement. A majority of Americans ready to support our teachers with a president and a Secretary of Education who believe in public education. Those Americans are counting on us to come together and act, and they cannot wait. I've met Americans not even yet old enough to vote, but who know that we cannot wait. An 11-year-old asking how his family will be able to afford the insulin he needs. He can't wait for a president who will ensure there is no such thing as an uninsured American or an unaffordable prescription. The 14-year-old who let me know she's already written out a basic will because she's terrified the next day in school could be her last. Cannot wait for a president who will see to it that she can walk into her school free of fear. The 10-year-old who let me know he expects to be around in 2100 and look back at whether we acted fast enough to secure his future. He cannot wait for a president prepared to enlist every American in the fight for our climate. We are running for them. This campaign is giving voice to them, and it has room for everyone, because no matter who you voted for in elections past, and for that matter, no matter who you caucused for tonight, we welcome you in our campaign, and you belong in the future that we are building for America. Whether you're a young woman with autism in Muscatine or a veteran battling addiction in Claremont, you belong. Whether you clean hotel rooms in Las Vegas or are getting a new business up and running in Charleston, you belong. I believe the presidency has a purpose. And the purpose of our American presidency is not the glorification of the president. It is the unification and the empowerment to the American people to solve these big problems. America has a place for everyone. And I believe this not because of my age, but because of my experience. I believe in American unity because of my experience serving, of lacing up my boots in the dust of a war zone alongside Americans so different We hardly had anything in common besides a flag on our shoulders, yet learned to trust each other with our lives.
Thank you.
I believe in American boldness because of my experience governing, guiding a city once called dying out of the shadows of our empty factories and into a brighter future. And I believe in American belonging because of an experience you are part of right here tonight. Looking out at you and remembering how it felt to be an Indiana teenager, wondering if he would ever belong in this world. Wondering if something deep inside him meant that he would forever be an outsider, that he might never wear the uniform, never be accepted, never even know love. And now that same person is standing in front of you, a mayor, a veteran, happily married, and one step closer to becoming the next president of the United States. Is the America we are building. That is the America so many Iowans chose tonight. If you are ready to build an American life defined by belonging, this is our chance. If you're ready to build an American politics defined by boldness, this is our chance. And if you are ready to build an American future defined by unity, in the face of our greatest challenges, this is our chance. So with hope in our hearts and fire in our bellies, we're going on to New Hampshire, on to the nomination, and on to chart a new course for this country that we love. Thank you. Thank you, Iowa. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And Mayor Pete Buttigieg coming as close to a victory speech as you can without actually knowing if you have won. Nobody knows at this point because no results have thus far been released. A highly unusual situation. We're going to take a short break. We'll have more from our panel right ahead. And we just heard from Mayor Pete Buttigieg giving essentially a victory speech, though no results have actually been released. Back now with our panel. Governor, was it the right thing to do for Mayor Buttigieg to come out?
Absolutely. I think he knows from all of his precinct captains, he's got a pretty good idea how he did tonight. He's feeling very good. Either thinks he won it or he was very close. Go out and declare victory tonight. He did the right thing.
Yeah, I think all these campaigns sort of know. They don't know exactly where everybody's going to land, but they know if they had a good night or a bad night. The Biden campaign obviously knows they didn't have a good night, which is why they were the first ones to send a letter questioning whether the results were valid. And so, you know, everybody's behaving as you would behave if you knew what actually happened.
If Mayor Buttigieg won the Iowa caucuses, I mean, then he got really...
He got
screwed.
Yeah, right. He got robbed. He got robbed.
Use the technical.
I mean, he didn't come out until, what, 12:06 or something?
But on the other hand, I understand where you're saying you did the right thing, Buttigieg. But if he didn't win, and you're all nodding, but if he didn't win, and he came out and he claimed victory.
Well, he didn't say they won. He said
we're leaving second.
He said victory.
And how do you define victory?
It was a risk. I think it was a risk to say we're going to go to New Hampshire victorious. And we've left out Elizabeth Warren, who is still definitely in that top tier. Her campaign manager is saying there's a top three.
So it depends how you define victory, and you're, okay, if I came in second or if I came in third, that's victory.
His words were, Iowa, you have shocked the nation.
Right.
Truer words were never spoken.
And we think that is about the vote count and not counting the votes.
But if he came in a close second, that's a big win, Gloria. No one expected him.
So you understand, right, nobody expected him to win, but it can be interpreted differently. Now, the person who was the smartest was Amy Klobuchar, because she came out right away. She clearly did not win the Iowa caucus.
All she said is, we punched above our weight.
That's right. And then she got covered wall to wall, I presume,
in a
on
good
cable.
time slot.
And then all the other candidates are saying, wait a minute, why don't I get out
but
there?
Buttigieg, I think, left his voters feeling good, feeling excited. So yeah, I mean, I think he did a good job.
Look, I think Pete got robbed tonight. I think this was history tonight. History tonight. It was a very big deal for Pete.
Why? Because of things went so terribly wrong.
I think it's history because you have a gay man who did the impossible. If he's number one, if he's number two, that's a big deal. He talked to his husband. His husband came out with him. That you've not seen that before in American history on a primary night, a caucus night, and that was a huge deal. And he deserved for the numbers to be running below him while he was giving that speech. Right. He got robbed of that, and I think it's terrible. I think Biden got an undeserved lifeline tonight because, again, I think an amble was about to drop on his head, and he got a chance to kind of scoot away like Wile E. Coyote. But I'm going to tell you, from my point of view, this is the bounce that he deserves. All the stuff. Your prediction is more true. Smerconish said, "Hey, listen, whoever comes out here good tonight's not going to be able to enjoy it." We didn't know how true it was going to be, but I just think it's worth just taking a moment to acknowledge history was made tonight. We had a gay American get that close to either first or second, give a speech like that, and it's important, and it should have been.
It is, and we did see enough data from these entrance polls to see that he ran more consistently across all groups in the state. Yeah. Which is, Bernie did very well with young people. Biden did very well with people over 65. Buttigieg did well across the state geographically, demographically. That was very good for him. But look, the biggest story tonight is not, I feel sorry for Pete Buttigieg, but how about the people of Iowa? How about the public that was looking for this process to begin? And now this cloud of doubt hangs over this whole process. And that's a tragic outcome. It may be a source of amusement for the president and his team. Right. But, for people who care about this process, this was a depressing night.
Yeah, there's some other weak spots to notice. The turnout was not great. It was not Obama-level turnouts. If the theory is we're so mad at Trump, where the train is coming for Trump, this is it. You didn't see it tonight. It was okay turnout. It wasn't strong. You had the party in disarray. You had the front runner Biden looking like he stepped on a banana peel. So there's reasons to be concerned if you're a Democrat. It doesn't mean that we can't get this thing pulled together and be feeling great in New Hampshire. But tonight was not encouraging.
I think turnout is possibly a bigger indicator of Democratic success in November than whoever we come up with as our nominee. So I was really hoping that we would see the trend that we have seen, frankly, in special elections, in midterm elections, since Trump was elected, which was an electorate that is really much, much larger than we've ever seen before. So tonight to see a slide in the first really big presidential contest, I hope that New Hampshire.
One of the questions I have is what was the effect of impeachment on this? Yeah. The fact that there were candidates who couldn't campaign. Some of the leading candidates weren't in the state for the last couple of weeks to try and rev the thing up. And also, we don't know what the impact on the Biden campaign was of his getting beaten up in these hearings. Not because I think voters in Iowa thought that he lacks integrity. I don't think that. I think that he's very well regarded. Polling, his numbers are very high. But there is this concern based on the last election. Is this the Benghazi, the email? Is this the thing they're going to try and tag him with? There is, Trump's in people's head.
It's the thing that Joni Ernst gave.
Yeah, exactly, promising to impeach him on day one for something that no one knows he did. I mean, he's not been accused of doing anything wrong. But so there are all kinds of cross currents here that made this funky and may have contributed to a lesser turnout than it would have been.
It would also seem that nobody gets out between now and New Hampshire. I had thought that maybe there would be a candidate or two candidates who might exit, but at this point, why would they? Just hang in for another week and see what happens.
Yeah, the huge impact is going to be money.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a huge money night for the winner of the Iowa caucuses. And someone may be announced tomorrow afternoon or something, but it just won't be the same. I mean, you're not going to get that huge lift. And depend on who the campaign is. Now, Pete and Bernie raise all their grassroots money. And so, may not be as big of an effect on them. But I mean, if Warren end up the winner, I don't know if she is in the ballpark, but if she would, this is a big missed opportunity for someone like her.
True.
If she actually did well tonight and didn't get the win.
And the person who was raising the least was, well, Biden has money problems. We talked about that earlier. But Amy Klobuchar has money issues and probably, and
yeah,
it
Joe
looks like she may have had a better night than people expected.
Right.
That would have been helpful to her.
There's a big difference between the two of them. Joe has a big super PAC. Amy does not. And so Amy needed this a lot more than
and don't forget, we're going to get results. I don't know when we're going to get results.
Let me say this. One challenge for Democrats tomorrow. And very important for these candidates. Let's not get stuck in the process of this Iowa caucus. They tomorrow got to get back talking issues that matter to the American public. And we cannot spend as a party yakking about what happened in Iowa. Our candidates got to rise above this tomorrow, no matter what happened, and get back to talking to the American public about issues that matter. And that's how we beat Trump.
We're going to take a quick break. Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo continue our coverage when we come back.
All right, welcome to CNN's continuing coverage of the Iowa caucuses. As you've been hearing tonight, we're waiting on the real returns, the real processing. We will take you through why this has been an epic failure tonight in terms of process, not necessarily outcome. We don't know who won. We don't know the standings, but we know one clear, huge loser, and that is the Iowa State Democratic Party. How they could let this process get to be so wrong so quickly is a big question going forward, because think about it. It means that whoever won here didn't get the push that they should have gotten tonight. Now, you're going to hear some of the speeches. A couple of different candidates seem to speak as though they think they're on top, but we don't know. So they're not getting the real push. And whoever's on the bottom got a real break tonight because they got an extra day of not being called the loser in Iowa. So the results obviously matter for the process, but also for the optics and for the momentum going into New Hampshire, which is just literally a week away. So let's start with our understanding of why there are not numbers filling your screen with the results tonight and what we understand about the state of this race. We go to Jeff Zeleny. What is the latest reckoning of what they're dealing with in this Iowa State Party and when they'll be able to do their job?
Well, Chris, I'll say good morning to you. And the sign behind me, I don't think you can see it, but it says results are coming soon. I'm here at the Iowa Democratic Party Media Center. That's obviously not happening. There are no results coming soon. In fact, I am told by two officials that the presidential campaigns have been notified that there will not be any results, even preliminary ones coming yet at this early morning hour. They are expecting them, anticipating results sometime Tuesday. We will see if that happens. One official tells me this. He said, at this point now, we need to get it right. That is an understatement. But Chris, this is how we got here. A year-long campaign, a multi-million-dollar campaign that at one point featured a couple dozen candidates in this race, ends in an era of uncertainty. It seems to be because of an app. A reporting app that did not work. We heard reports throughout the day that this app was not working. And you'll remember, these results are, essentially reported from local officials in almost 1,700 precincts across the state of Iowa. So they switched to an old telephone system. Well, that was all fine and well, except the phones were jammed. We heard reports from across the state, election officials across the state saying they were on hold for up to 90 minutes at a time. We also heard some reports saying some of the reporting was just fine. Some people were able to get through. So there was an inconsistency there. The state party has not spoken about this extensively. They said that they're trying to, essentially wait until these numbers are accurate and with integrity. But there was a late-night conference call with presidential campaigns to advise them of this, but they are not happy about this at all. The campaigns are not. So most of the candidates flying on to New Hampshire as we speak, but leaving behind so many questions of uncertainty about what actually happened here in Iowa.
It's interesting. This is not the first time we've had a problem in Iowa in terms of delays. 2016, we didn't hear until 2 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. Obviously, when Santorum won here, it was a 2-week measure. But we have never seen anything like this. And the reason they're being quiet, Jeff, seems pretty obvious. They don't have a good explanation. They're embarrassed, and they're hiding. But here's the problem. Why should anybody have confidence in the results that they put out? They clearly got over their heads. They said they had a backup to the backup to the backup, and that was obviously BS. How do they restore any confidence?
Well, this is the reason why they say they have confidence. And I was actually in a precinct this evening and was actually watching how this process is working. And there are new rules in place. There is actually a paper trail that people filled out their first choice and their second choice. So the paperwork exists for that. That is different than 4 years ago. 4 years ago, the race between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders so close, the Sanders campaign was furious, so it inspired a lot of these new rules. Remember, we were supposed to get the popular vote, if you will, the raw result tonight, as well as the delegate equivalent. So that was one of the confusions here. But there is a paper trail, and party officials say they want to get this right. But Chris, as you said, it is going to leave the campaigns who didn't do so well to question these results. So, of course, that diminishes the results for the campaigns that did well. So this will be sorted out in the morning, but it will certainly not be resolved. And more than one person here I've talked to, in fact, a lot of people say, is this the death of the Iowa caucuses? We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are already questions about the caucus structure. There are pluses and minuses, the level of dedication, the access to the 99 counties and person-to-person politicking is unique here. But how often can you screw something up when there's so much money and so much time to get it right and still be the stepping off point for something as important as a presidential election? Jeff Zeleny, thank you very much. And in terms of when we're going to hear, there's one report out there from a precinct captain, you know, the person who's in charge of the count for that particular area, who said, yeah, tomorrow morning, but I have a doctor's appointment, so it may not be till about 10 o'clock in the morning when I put the results in. True story, all right? That's what we're dealing with. Arlette Saenz right now is at Biden HQ. He came out earlier, enthusiastic, Arlette. He's already on his way to New Hampshire. What was the mood like in that room tonight? How do they think they did?
Well, Joe Biden was here trying to rally his supporters in Iowa, and he said that he wants the Iowa Democratic Party to be very careful in their deliberations over these results. He predicted that he will emerge from Iowa with a delegate slate, but he didn't know exactly where that would fall, just saying that he believes that it will be close here. Now, the official line for the campaign is that the issues with the results tonight should be a cause of concern for voters, that they should take that into consideration. Now, the Biden camp started to feel like there could be issues with the results around 7:45 or 8 p.m. local time. They just hadn't started to see any of reporting from precincts, including smaller precincts, which typically could come in a little bit earlier in the evening. And they had been in contact with the Iowa Democratic Party and felt like they were not getting answers about what was going on. They stayed in contact with other campaigns as well as they tried to sort out what was happening. Now, as we are waiting to see how these results will eventually be reported, Joe Biden is making his way to New Hampshire. He's slated to have 2 events there in Nashua and Concord later this morning. But as one Biden advisor summed up this entire situation to me, they said this is like when the lights went out at the Super Bowl. Chris?
Well, that's an interesting take from them, Arlette, because you could make the argument if anybody should be okay with this result tonight, it should be the Biden campaign, because they may have been spared a very tough result to sell to the donors that they're still trying to get. Thank you very much for the reporting. Appreciate it for the long night. Let's go to MJ Lee. She's at the Warren campaign. You know, somebody else who may have been able to toot their horn with some numbers and some understanding of where they are in the race. They don't get to do that now. How was it there tonight?
That's right, Chris. I think you can see over my right shoulder, the stage is being taken apart. This election night is over for Elizabeth Warren. She spoke to supporters, as we saw earlier tonight. She took photos with her fans, but now she is getting on a plane to head to New Hampshire to start campaigning in the next state. And this is certainly not the evening that her campaign or any of the other candidates' campaigns wish to have tonight. I don't think any of them expected that there would be this much uncertainty and confusion heading into tonight. As one of the advisors that I spoke to earlier in the evening told me, they very much worry about the credibility that gets weakened the more time that passes before we have these results. And, you know, so much hinges on Iowa. Politically speaking, this state is so incredibly important, as we've talked talked about all day. So the fact that this was a campaign that felt good about the kind of campaign that they have been running in Iowa all year, and they were hopeful that all of those efforts would pay off to leave physically for New Hampshire and the next state without knowing how they did. And with the credibility of the Iowa Democratic Party now on the line, this again is not the evening they wanted. I will just make a quick note about that speech that Warren gave to supporters here earlier. She explicitly drew a contrast between herself and President Trump. So the message was clear. She wanted to send the final message to Iowans and anybody else that might be tuning in from across the country that she believes she is the best candidate to take on Trump and the best female candidate, she emphasized, to take on President Trump. So we expect that to be her message going forward as we continue on to these other states past Iowa. Chris.
MJ, thank you very much. And just 3 quick points as we check in with the Bernie Sanders campaign. The first one is, this is not about being nitpicky, okay? This mattered. These campaigns put a lot of money, a lot of resources that they could have put in other places. They were making big bets on Iowa. Who's going to get talked about and in what way between now and New Hampshire? You know, this is very much domino effect, especially with media and narratives. And that's now been stalled. And people put a lot of money and they put their lives out there for months and months. So it matters. And literally, this state had one job. They had one job, and they blew it at the most important time in the election. The criticism should not be mitigated by any means. Now, Ryan Nobles, we'll go to him. He is with the Sanders campaign. And if there is one metric that we can rely on tonight for enthusiasm as a campaign, is that you're the only person in a shop where there's still a ton of people behind you.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. It was actually a pretty interesting scene here because Bernie Sanders came out and spoke earlier in the evening when it became clear that the results were maybe not going to come out tonight. And you would think that this crowd would have just exited at that point. But then one of his campaign surrogates, national co-chair Nina Turner, came out on the stage and told this crowd that they were still prepared to declare victory at some point tonight. And there was a good chance that Sanders might come out. And this crowd actually grew after that point. It was a very buoyant crowd. It was a crowd that clearly was in the mood for a celebration tonight, but it was something that just never came. And I can tell you, behind the scenes, there's a lot of frustration with the Sanders campaign and their aides because they really feel that they were in a strong position here tonight in Iowa. And they really had Iowa as the first step in what they believed was a lot of momentum heading into the rest of this Democratic primary. So they're yet on these results coming out and then being able to go to Democratic primary voters and say, we've won this first contest. But now it's just a matter of being patient. And to the point that you made earlier, this does make that case to be made much more complicated because these results will always have the taint of what happened here tonight associated with them. But, I did talk to one pretty high-level Sanders aide throughout the night tonight, Chris, and I said, what are you going to do if at the end of all of this, these results are in question? And he looked at me and smiled, and he said, we're just going to go win New Hampshire. So these campaigns, they've dealt with adversity and hardship before. This is another example of it. They seem pretty prepared to just roll up their sleeves and move on to the next contest, if that's what it comes to.
Ryan, you make a lot of good points, and one of them is, they changed the rules and streamlined the process because of what happened the last time to Bernie Sanders. So if anybody wanted to come out on top, if he finished at the top here tonight, that's one more day of being on top. That's one more day of momentum. It's one more day of raising money and attention, and he has been denied that by this process. But we'll see. New Hampshire just days away. Ryan, thank you very much. Abby Phillip at Pete Buttigieg. That's what they were chanting behind him, Buttigieg. They're still in that struggle to make that name as easy to pronounce as possible. Now, he came out, Abby, and he was the most full-throated to say, I won. He came out last. But his message was pretty clear. I was first.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Here, I think the sense in this room was that the people in the room felt like there was victory to be claimed. Pete Buttigieg came out claiming victory, saying he's going to New Hampshire tonight, actually, and is going to campaign tomorrow after, in his view, being victorious in Iowa, even though, as everyone knows at this point, there are no official results. What is interesting about how this chaotic night really unfolded is that the Buttigieg campaign has not been particularly focused on these discrepancies in the results. They've acknowledged them, they said that they're waiting, but they've been getting all of these data points from their precinct captains, where they have precinct captains all over the state, and those are the results that they're saying they're using in order to claim victory. So the speech that he gave here tonight is the speech of someone who believes that at the end of this process, he'll be able to say that this was a good night for him. You heard in his speech a lot of references to the historical nature of his candidacy and the historical nature of this night, frankly, regardless of how it ended up for him. I mean, he came out on this stage and gave his husband, Chasten Buttigieg, a huge hug. And I think that that in and of itself is something that gets lost in all of this process, but I think it was not lost on the people here in this room tonight. The question is, going forward, despite the claims of victory from Buttigieg, does he get the boost that he is looking for? Right. Does he really get to say that at the end of the day, this is what he says it is? The campaign is really emphasizing they feel they did really well in showing that they could put together a diverse coalition of voters, people from rural areas, suburban areas, people from all across this state. They think that is proof positive that they have a coalition that can go into a November election against Donald Trump and win. So that's the key message they wanted to come out of this caucus with. The big question for all of us is going to be tomorrow. Do the actual results verify that? Do they show that that claim is actually true?
Well, it's a good test for the campaigns because there's opportunity in the unknown. So, Pete, you can argue he should have come out sooner when we were watching everybody wait for results. You know, if he wanted to declare a winner, he should have probably come out sooner, but that's a style point. At the end of the day, Abby, what's the downside? He says he won. As long as it's close, you know, a reporter like you comes and says, hey, you know, the official results, you were actually second. He says who? You trust those results? So he's probably going to get his victory if he wants to define it that way, as long as it's close, and hopefully we'll know sooner rather than later. Thank you very much. All right, let's take a quick break here. When we come back, how do you play this situation as the campaigns? You can only talk about the Iowa State Democratic Party for so long, right? They screwed up. They're in the history books. It winds up what happens the next cycle. We'll talk about that years from now. But what do the campaigns do with this? Who was helped? Who was hurt? What does it mean in the next big race? Stay with CNN.
And we're back with CNN special coverage. You can say really special coverage of the Iowa caucus. Look at that. Usually that magic wall right there, John King would be all over it. But he's not right now. Look, 0. It is 1 in the morning here, past 1 in the morning on the East Coast. And guess what? We have 0 results coming in from Iowa. I'm Don Lemon. Thank you so much for joining us. We have so much to talk about. Initially, Chris was supposed to be there giving the results of what was coming in. We would usually be at about 90 or 95% right now, but not so. We're at 100% of nothing, meaning 0 in. So let's bring in our folks now. Laura Barone Lopez is here, Andrew Gillum, Jen Psaki, Mitch Landrieu, Rick Santorum. Thank you all for joining us. I appreciate it. Did I say Mitch Landrieu?
You did.
Yeah. I did or did not?
You did.
I did. Okay. I just want to make sure. I want to make sure I get, you know, my homeboy correct, give you the right treatment. But listen, this is not what we expected.
No.
So I feel, and I think most people do, that Pete Buttigieg got, right? He got hosed. And in the sense that,
well, it depends. It depends whether he actually won or not.
That's good, right? But if he won,
if he didn't win, he had a great night.
Yeah,
because he went out there and claimed he won, even though he may not have won.
No, Rick, it was important for him to either come out on top or come out close to the top. And if he either way, it was.
It's not the same. As someone who can tell you from experience, who lost the Iowa caucuses on caucus night by 8 votes. Winning is much better than losing by 8 votes.
Winning is better than second.
But you actually won.
Well, but 2 weeks later, no, it makes a difference whether he won or not.
Yeah.
Particularly for Bernie. I mean, Bernie's look at the same situation that Romney was in. If Bernie actually won tonight and then looks to be well ahead in New Hampshire, I mean, he wins Iowa, New Hampshire. It's, the train's running.
But that speaks to why. I mean, tonight's just such a shame. It was so chaotic. It was handled very, very poorly. It should have never happened this way. For all the people that spent so much time working on this, for this thing to turn out this way and for us not to have any results is really, it's really tough.
The only winner for tonight is the state of Florida.
We have been replaced in our election chaos by the great state of Iowa.
Yeah.
But to your point, Mayor, it really is unfortunate that so many people put not only time, resources, and effort, but some of these campaigns went for broke trying to come out of Iowa impressive with enough of a lead to give them momentum going into these next set of states. And given the news that we're all going to be talking about, tomorrow, you have the President's State of the Union.
Right.
There'll be conversation about how that goes, especially under the fact that we're still within this impeachment
And how the
process.
Democrats are performing. Because that's certainly going to be a talking point for this
for
president.
sure it will.
But Jim, these guys spent millions of dollars. What does this say about Iowa? Is Iowa still, I mean, is it losing its luster when it comes to the presidential election?
I mean, Don, I think even without this, there'd be some big questions about whether Iowa should be first, whether the caucus system and process makes sense because of the issues that we've been talking about for a while, which is the lack of diversity, the fact that it is obviously quite white, very rural. Is this representative of the Democratic electorate?
How do you argue that, though, after tonight? I mean, I don't think there's any arguing. If you watch the pictures you saw, and many people texting me and calling me saying, hey, listen, I've never watched the process this closely. It's not very diverse. I don't see, I hardly see any people of color, except for maybe sitting behind
Watching the process probably made people question it more at home because you're watching it and you're thinking, what's happening here? They're kind of trading off.
The caucus process is peculiar to begin with, but there are a couple of issues. One of them is competence, and it was not run very competently tonight. Secondly, Iowans, and I was there a couple of weeks ago, and you know this, they take their responsibility very, very seriously. So for it to have turned out for the Iowans is really tough. But the bigger issue is, should there be a caucus or should it be like a regular election? And secondly, does Iowa, as important as it is to them, does it really reflect the breadth of the Democratic Party? And if it started someplace, would other kinds of candidates emerge rather than there? And I think we're going to continue to have that debate, which we've had from time to time.
Also, I was just in Iowa. I just got back, actually, tonight. And so many Iowans, what is happening tonight is actually a big fear of theirs. In the lead up to the caucus, a lot of Iowa voters were telling me, were telling my colleagues, we're so afraid that if we do not get this right, whether it's the process, whether it's picking who the ultimate nominee is, or picking someone who likes Iowa, that we're going to lose our first in the nation.
But is it Iowa or is it the Democratic Party?
No, it was voters. There was a legit concern among
No, but I mean,
Democratic
who do you
voters.
blame for this? You can't blame the entire state of Iowa.
Well,
I
the
think it was the
process,
Democratic Party.
is the Democratic
Is the
Party.
Iowa
and
Democratic-
and is what they decided to do with the app and not being fully prepared and knowing earlier in the day that maybe that app was not working, which Politico reported. And so not addressing those concerns early on.
Did they take on too much by rolling out a new app and new rules all at the same time?
They may have, but I will also say that I think part of their stress you're talking about is maybe reflected in their waiting to report and go through the actual process of counting the paper here and making sure they have the right results, because they know they're holding on for dear life of being first in the nation with the caucus, right? And the DNC and the Democratic National Party also knows that they are under kind of a watchful eye, because last cycle they were accused of rigging the election and putting their thumb on the scale for Hillary Clinton. So I think it's smart to be careful. Of course, we'd love to have results. Of course, would be better for candidates to have the results, but at the same time, better to be right and be tomorrow.
Rick, let me ask you. We're coming off of 2016. We were talking about the integrity in the election, the Russians, and what have you. You've got the Biden campaign putting out saying, "Listen, before you announce any results, we want to know about what standards you have in place."
Sounds like someone running fifth.
But how do people have confidence in the process after this?
Well, no, I think I think that's just someone running fifth. I think that's someone who had a bad night and is trying to cast a pall over the legitimacy of the election. I think that's punching down. I think it's not a good look.
Well, even beyond Biden, I mean, how do people have confidence? Because they're sitting around watching this saying, listen, this is a caucus. This is the first in the nation, the first people voting.
Well, I mean, they
don't even have the results.
Created a punchline for President Trump. He said, this is the party that wants to run your health care, and they can't run a caucus. So, I mean, this is not a good look for the Democratic Party tonight. I mean,
but I do think, to Biden's statement, and frankly to some of the other candidates trying to pour cold water on the efficacy of the results, I have not seen yet real legitimate reporting that says that what we're ultimately going to get from these respective precincts is the accurate reflection of what voters there decide.
So listen, I'm going to say, according to CNN is learning right now that the Iowa Democratic Party is holding another call with the campaigns right now. Obviously, they know that this is serious. But what good does that do at this point? We're not expecting results until sometime later today.
Well, the campaigns were clearly, understandably dissatisfied with what they heard on the first call. Well, many of them spoke out and said they were. Now, I will say the ones who are complaining the most are the ones who may not do the best, right? So we'll have to look at the results, and if that is how the rank order ends up being, Biden's letter or Warren's complaints, if they're not the ones winning or getting 1, 2, 3, it may decrease the importance of that.
But here's the point. If you're a smart campaigner and you have good people behind you, right? You have a good ground game. Can't everyone declare some sort of victory tonight? I mean, clearly, I thought Amy Klobuchar was brilliant. She came out right at 11 o'clock. She was the first one. And she said, hey, listen, here's where we're going. This is what we're doing. And so to her, to most people at home, it looks like she did really well. She may have won. And then you had Biden.
Right. I mean, they're all picking up the ball where they find it. It is critically important, though, for the country, for the Democratic primaries and for the general election, for Iowa to get this right. And whenever the votes come out, that they're accurately counted, that people know that their votes mattered, and that they're actually accurate. That is important. You can't get past the fact that it's 1 o'clock and we still don't have numbers, though.
You got a shot of that magic wall for us. It's 1 o'clock in the morning.
You can't paper over that. That's a not.
And our magic
no way
wall
you can make that. Pile of
I have
look
no
good.
doubt that they have all sorts of redundancies in these counts just to make sure that something doesn't happen like it happened in 2012. So I have no doubt when the numbers are reported, they're going to be accurate. There's too many people looking over their shoulders.
I had someone from one of the campaigns tell me clearly the system was compromised. But
that's a fifth place.
But I agree with Rick. I mean, the president got a good line. I mean, they can't run the caucus. How are they going to run the country?
Even with the delayed results.
Listen, the Trump campaign officials at the highest levels are already suggesting that the votes could be rigged here. So that's giving them.
Well, first of all, that's rich coming from anybody within the Trump atmosphere whatsoever. But I do think, just to make the final point that this is a very, very, very important part of the process. People have to have a belief, and the integrity of these elections are going to be run and run fairly. We're all Burger King babies. We want it our way right away. The truth is that I think we've got to demonstrate some patience, that when the count comes out, that we can stand behind it, that it was done fair, adequately. We won't get the victory of being able to say who won tonight, maybe, but certainly we ought to have some faith in
But it does.
I got to get to the break, but CNN is learning now that according to a Biden senior campaign official, that the Iowa Democratic Party on the phone now giving an update to the campaigns. We're not expecting numbers until later on today. We don't know if that could mean 2 o'clock in the morning. It could mean 8 o'clock in the morning. We have no idea. But what we do know is that the numbers are not out yet. If you look at our magic wall again, the magic wall is showing there is no magic to what happened tonight. There was clearly some sort of gremlin in the system, technical glitch, if you want to call it. The apps broke down. Technology did not pan out tonight. We're going to continue our conversation and our special coverage of the Iowa Democratic Caucus right after this quick break. Don't go anywhere.